Leo thanked them like customers because robbing dead thieves was turning out to be even more profitable than normal business. Before the crowd could process that, the now unmanned flying ship dropped straight onto Leo's head. Leo caught the 100-meter vessel with one hand and dryly scolded the attackers for illegally parking on top of him. Then he leapt into the sky near Ouyang Feng's cruiser and shattered the captured ship with a casual finger flick. The wreckage blasted across the sky and even struck Ouyang Feng's people, forcing every faction there to reevaluate how dangerous Leo really was. Leo met the stunned silence by locking eyes with Ouyang Feng and loudly crunching down 3 more pills just to mock him. Since he still could not fly properly, Leo dropped back down onto his store, and the roof tiles lit up with a barrier so the building could take his landing. Back on the roof, Leo kept snacking on pills and turned his taunting grin toward the southern crowd, asking where the factory people were hiding. Watching from afar, Wu Bai burst out laughing while Hua Jiashan and the others were left speechless by how easily Leo had erased 20 nascent soul cultivators. Hua Jiashan could only admit that Leo truly did look like an immortal, even if none of them understood the full limits of that power. Wu Bai proudly called it the greatness of the Tao of Florida, leaving Han Hao too exasperated to do anything but facepalm. Even Hua Jiashan ended up stuck on that ridiculous title, quietly wondering whether Florida was a place, a plant, or some unknown mystic path. Bokai comes to the tribulation site hoping to snatch an immortal pill, but Leo looks far too healthy for someone who just survived purple heavenly lightning. Nearby, Ouyang Feng quietly asks his master Qing Yuanji if Leo is really injured or just bluffing. Qing Yuanji says Leo's aura feels like soul formation, but he cannot see any Tao avatar, so he suspects Leo's foundation is strange and weak. Even so, Qing Yuanji refuses to rush in and tells Ouyang Feng to wait for other thieves to test Leo first. On the southern side, a black-robed factory cult squad also hesitates after seeing the first attackers die. Their leader Situlwan warns that anyone who walks away from purple tribulation looking fine is probably far more dangerous than he appears. Instead of attacking head-on, Situlwan decides to strike from afar and use Leo as bait until the hidden experts in the crowd start killing each other. The factory cult throws out 100 talismans and builds a killing array that gathers chi into a giant purple energy sphere. Situlwan knows the array probably will not kill Leo, but he still fires it to force the stalemate to break. Down below, Leo has been waiting for someone to make a move, and the silence annoys him more with every second. To provoke them, Leo goes inside, grabs his box of grain pills, and comes back out still chewing immortal pills in plain sight. He shouts that only 10 immortal pills are left, daring the entire crowd to stop him before he eats everything. When nobody moves, Leo casually tosses 3 more pills into his mouth, and the crowd only gets angrier. At that exact moment, Situlwan's killing array finally finishes charging. The purple strike slams into Leo, but the blast also runs through the pills in his hands and turns every last one of them to dust. Leo just stares at the destroyed pills in numb disbelief, and even the attackers realize they ruined the treasure. Some opportunists immediately lose interest and start leaving, convinced the whole fight has become pointless. But the ruined pill dust suddenly reacts with the talisman lightning, and the entire array starts flying toward the rainbow energy on its own. A tiny warped void opens in front of Leo, and he instinctively steps back as space itself starts to twist. The shop system warns Leo that a rift has appeared inside his domain, confirming this mess is much worse than a failed attack. The suction rapidly intensifies, and loose objects around the yard begin flying straight into the rift. Leo whirls around and shuts the front door, worried the vacuum will tear his shop apart next. Instead, the store and the other system buildings glow faintly and hold firm behind a thin barrier while the surroundings are torn away. Even with his feet planted, Leo still feels himself being dragged forward, and his annoyance finally boils over. Fed up, Leo decides to punish the attackers directly and activates the shop domain to harvest their lifespan. Above the scene, Situlwan smugly assumes the lightning finally rattled Leo and that the crowd will clear out for an easy capture. His confidence dies instantly when translucent lifespan screens pop up in front of the factory cult members. Situlwan watches his remaining lifespan race from nearly 1,000 years to 0 in a heartbeat. Before the cult can react, their bodies crumble into ash and their robes and rings drop uselessly onto the airship deck. The surviving factory airship crew panics and tries to flee, only to realize the rift has already trapped them. The entire ship is dragged into the rift first, crushed down into fragments, and vanishes without a trace. Still fighting the pull himself, Leo curses the factory cult for turning a simple robbery into this disaster. When Leo looks up for more targets, the rest of the crowd is already trying to run for it. Leo exposes everyone's lifespan and bellows that if they do not come down, he can erase them all on the spot. His voice alone ruptures weaker cultivators' eardrums, and nascent soul and golden core spectators start dropping out of the sky. Ouyang Feng crashes down bleeding from the ears and begs Qing Yuanji to get him out immediately. Qing Yuanji is not hurt by the shout, but the lifespan panel in front of him makes him realize Leo can kill him just as easily. Before he can decide whether to surrender, the rift yanks at their ship hard enough to force the choice for him. Qing Yuanji abandons the rest of the Ouyang clan, grabs Ouyang Feng, and escapes north as their people are dragged into the void behind them. Bo Kai is less lucky and slams onto the roof of workshop number 2 before tumbling down to the ground. As he struggles to stand, a tiny spore slips out of the workshop and goes straight into his nose. Bokai tries to force the intruder out with chi, but the spore devours that chi and grows larger inside his airway. The more Bokai fights, the faster the forbidden mushroom feeds on his chi and flesh until he cannot breathe. After a violent seizure, Bokai collapses unconscious instead of dying, already slipping into the mushroom's nightmare state. Inside that fever dream, Bokai wakes in an abandoned town with a monstrous hunger, and sees pig-like bodies falling from the sky like food. Thinking he has found meat, Bokai crawls over and starts biting into one of the pigmen without understanding what he is doing. Back outside, Leo notices more southerners crashing onto his workshops and suddenly remembers the dangerous mushrooms he left growing in Workshop 2. He remembers the sweet dream mushroom seed he left in Workshop 2, a notorious catalyst that should be fully grown by now, and the thought completely sidetracks him. Leo breaks free of the rift's pull with one kick and lands right in front of Workshop number 2 to check the door. The door is still locked, which briefly reassures him, until panic screaming erupts from the side. When Leo turns, he finds a mushroom zombie overpowering a cultivator who cannot even cut it with his Dao avatar sword. A few seconds later, the zombie pins the man and bites into his neck while Leo just stares at the absurdity of it. Leo is weirdly amused by the sight of a real cordyceps zombie, but the rift swells again before he can enjoy the spectacle. The 2-meter rift starts ripping up iron pines and soil, and everything too weak to resist begins floating toward it. The zombie, its corpse, and roughly 100 weaker cultivators are all swallowed at once, and that sudden mass sacrifice finally calms the rift. At last the black hole shrinks down to nothing, leaving Leo standing in stunned relief. Once the danger passes, Leo surveys the front of his property and finds a giant crater where the yard used to be. The farms are half torn into moats, and the trees are scattered everywhere, but the store itself still stands unbroken. Leo checks the windows, finds them still perfect, and pats the building with genuine satisfaction. Then he looks up for survivors and realizes the entire sky has emptied out. That is when the real pain hits him. He only harvested around 40 people's lifespan and let the rest escape. He berates himself for not baiting them harder, and imagines all the lifespan he could have farmed if he had pushed them into attacking. While Leo is still melting down, a massive flying sword glides in and descends over the damaged farmland. Wu Bai arrives with Han Hao, Han Meng, Tiger Swordsman, Hua Jiashan, and a group of elders, and after what they just witnessed, everyone steps down in open fear. Leo greets the new arrivals with a bright smile so unsettling it sounds less like hospitality and more like asking whether they came to shop or to die. The group instantly panics and blurts out that they are customers and friends here to buy, not thieves looking for trouble. Wu Bai and Han Meng even drop to full kowtows, terrified that Leo might kill them by mistake. Hua Jiashan steps up at last, introduces himself as the Life Sword Sect Master, and formally thanks Leo for taking care of his people. Only then does Leo recognize them, and his disappointment makes it painfully clear he really had mistaken them for fresh prey. Leo finally welcomes them properly, apologizes for the wreck outside, and leads the badly shaken guests into the still intact store for tea. Leo welcomed the visiting elders into his expanded store, and everyone except Hua Jiashan immediately looked around in open amazement. Trying to play generous host, Leo handed out free bottles of Rejuvenate tea and dragged over sacred wood blocks to use as simple chairs. The elders almost winced themselves to death when they realized they were being told to sit on priceless sacred wood like it was cheap lumber. Wu Bai and Han Hao loved the tea enough to chug it on the spot, and Han Hao quickly asked to buy more. Leo named 1,000,000 spirit stones per bottle, thinking it was a bold scam, but Han Hao accepted so fast it caught him off guard. Because Leo still could not use a spatial ring properly, he had Han Hao move the payment for him, and Han Hao nearly panicked when he sensed 1,000,000,000 spirit stones already inside Leo's ring. With the mood settled, Leo pulled out a black essence stone and asked the group what they thought about him selling a new kind of item. Hua Jiashan was the first to recognize it, and warned Leo that essence stones were officially banned contraband under imperial law. Leo pushed back immediately, and revealed what his system had told him. One essence stone held 10 years of 5-element cultivation, so the emperor's story sounded like a lie. Hua Jiashan admitted Leo was right and exposed the real reason for the ban. The imperial court wanted to monopolize essence stones for itself. The room reeled from the reveal, and Hua Jiashan explained that real cultivators valued essence stones far above ordinary spirit stones because spirit stones gave weak, sloppy foundations. Once Leo understood how valuable they were, he decided to weaponize that greed and casually announced that he had 1,000,000 essence stones for sale. Hua Jiashan shot to his feet and warned that selling them openly would bring the imperial court, quasi-immortals, and an army down on Leo's head. Leo and Wu Bai answered that threat with matching grins, openly welcoming a fight and acting like this stunt would start a new era. When one elder asked the price, Leo dropped it to a ridiculous bargain of 1 year of lifespan per essence stone for these regular customers. That price shattered their self-control, and Wu Bai, Han Meng, Han Hao, and Tiger Swordsman all jumped up at once to buy as many as they could. Leo immediately harvested their lifespan through the shop and came back with a huge sack, letting the elders buy hundreds of stones each until they only had about a century left to live. To prove the stones were real, Wu Bai tested one on the spot and instantly felt enough 5-element essence to imagine rebuilding his whole cultivation path. While the others hid their new contraband away, Hua Jiashan quietly relaxed because Liu's reckless generosity convinced him the man was genuinely helping the sect. With his suspicions eased, Hua Jiashan looked past the stones and offered something more practical. Sect disciples could come work in Liu's store and help manage the growing mess. Liu immediately saw the upside, from cleaning and security to keeping cat out of the granary, but he still asked Hua Jiashan what he really wanted in return. Hua Jiashan admitted the catch right away. He wanted Liu to expose those sheltered disciples to the wider world and let them learn by working under him. Then Hua Jiashan pushed further and suggested sending alchemy department people too, hoping Liu's resources could turn his store into a training ground for pill makers. Wu Bai eagerly sold himself as the best candidate, boasting about his century of experience and strong pill success rate. Liu answered by pointing at the Yang Flame pills on his shelf, silently making Wu Bai realize he had completely missed a much bigger clue. When Liu asked how long Wu Bai would need to make those pills, the proud alchemist admitted one batch would still take him about a month and several assistants. The other elders thought that answer sounded impressive, but Liu flatly called it too slow and stunned the whole room. Wu Bai demanded to know Liu's own time, certain no one could casually beat him on medium-grade pills. Liu said 3 hours, and that answer hit so hard Wu Bai dropped his tea bottle, while everyone else shot to their feet. Since the workshops would eventually be discovered anyway, Liu decided he might as well show them a demonstration without explaining the system behind it. Liu led the whole group into the backyard, where 2 alchemy workshop buildings stood waiting behind the store. He told them to wait, while he went to the granary for ingredients, leaving the cultivators wondering why a man with rich rings still fetched materials by hand. Inside the granary, Liu found Cat still hiding from the recent heavenly tribulation, so he quietly cut some virgin young potatoes, grabbed a fiery tomato and a tiger-killing orange, and left her alone. When Liu returned, Wu Bai was already fussing over the cauldron, but Hua Jiashan had sensed something foul from the second workshop and demanded answers first. Without stopping for the question, Liu tossed the ingredients into the first cauldron and spat into the firebox, igniting the workshop in one absurdly casual motion. The cauldron started refining on its own, and Wu Bai could only stare in disbelief because Liu was already walking away without touching it again. At the second workshop, Hua Jiashan's fear sharpened into recognition, and he asked Liu if he was secretly cultivating another forbidden substance. Liu joked back, and when Hua Jiashan realized the smell was sweet dream mushroom, his composure broke completely. Hua Jiashan warned that these mushrooms were far worse than essence stones, reminding Liu that one outbreak had once wiped out 5 countries and 20 million people. He pressed harder, explaining that the spores consumed cultivators from the inside and turned victims into mindless monsters that fed on other cultivators. Liu ignored the panic, opened the second workshop, and revealed a full-blown orange mushroom infestation carpeting the floor, walls, and ceiling. The sight was so bad that Hua Jiashan instantly fled high into the sky and screamed at Liu to burn everything before he got infected. Liu still treated it like a resource, peeled a patch of mushrooms off the doorway, and tossed them into the second cauldron to inspect their value. The system's answer made Liu's eyes light up, because the deadly fungus could be refined into priceless pills or eaten directly to gain 1 year of lifespan per gram. Once he realized the biggest mushroom alone was worth an absurd amount of lifespan, Liu abandoned all restraint and rushed inside to eat it himself. An hour later, Liu came back out dusted with orange spores and feeling fantastic, like the toxic mushroom had only made him stronger. Hua Jiashan cautiously descended again, but the orange stains on Liu's clothes made him retreat a second time and question whether Liu was still sane. Liu answered normally and claimed he was simply immune, which relieved Hua Jiashan a little but not enough for him to get close. Meanwhile, Wu Bai stopped caring about anything else, because his senses told him the first cauldron was flawlessly splitting one batch into 30 remote refined pills. Since Hua Jiashan still feared contamination, Liu went to his room, changed into a full hazmat suit, and came back to ease the tension. Even with Liu suited up, Hua Jiashan still kept his distance from the second workshop and begged him again to destroy the sweet dream mushrooms before they became a catastrophe. Hua Jiashan stops arguing about side issues and bluntly warns Liu that the sweat dream mushrooms can turn cultivators into Jianshi-like undead monsters. When Hua Jiashan adds that the spores spread by bites and skin contact and that there is no cure, Liu finally treats the mushroom project like a full disaster. Liu gives up on farming the mushrooms for now and tells everyone to cover their noses and mouths while he handles the cleanup himself because he is immune. Back in a hazmat suit, Liu re-enters the workshop and gets hit with a nasty surprise when the mushrooms he peeled off and even the parts he ate have already grown back. Liu asks the system to erase the infestation, but the answer tells him the cleaning feature only works if he has a recycling center building. That reminder makes Liu check his lifespan, and the number has exploded past 90,000 years after the massacre and the mushroom feast. Now flush with lifespan, Liu immediately buys the auto-translation ability and rushes back outside to fix the real problem. Liu admits the mushrooms are regenerating too fast and tells the elders he needs to use some special magic, which instantly gets everyone's attention. Instead of explaining himself, Leo grabs the store wall and spends lifespan to push the humble general store from level 5 to level 6. Level 6 still is not enough, so Leo spends even more lifespan and upgrades the store again to level 7. The new build list finally reveals the recycling center Leo needs, along with a bizarre mystic realm portal he pointedly leaves alone for now. Leo builds only the recycling center behind the alchemy workshop, saving the portal for later and placing the new structure beside the warehouse. At the same time, the general store itself transforms into a much grander 2-story building, leaving the watching cultivators completely stunned. While everyone is distracted by the miracle, Leo slips away with a burst of speed and heads straight for the new recycling building behind the workshop. Inside the rusty shed, Leo finds only a bare recycling menu and no obvious answer for how the place is supposed to save him. With no better plan, Leo brute forces the solution and upgrades the recycling center all the way to level 7, putting every point into worker slots. 7 wooden recycling mannequins rise from the floor in yellow safety helmets and jackets, and Leo can only laugh at how seriously the place takes its worker gear. When Leo checks the assigned material function, the system finally explains that the workers can gather whatever he marks as trash and try to make new products from it. Before Leo can even figure out how to assign the mushrooms safely, the recycling workers suddenly turn in unison and march toward the infected workshop on their own. The elders watch the strange procession from afar, and Tiger Swordsman recognizes the workers as golems and guesses that Leo must be some rare kind of spirit summoner. As Han Ming chats with his old rival about summon styles, Leo quietly buys big transparent storage boxes and opens the workshop for the golems. Hua Jiashan immediately throws up a chi barrier around the area, and seconds later the leak spores slam into it hard enough to prove his fear was justified. Hua Jiashan burns the spores off his own barrier and warns everyone again that one careless breath would be fatal. Inside the workshop, the fight turns ugly as every mushroom Leo and the workers rip out grows right back and even tries to spread onto their bodies. The cleanup stalls into a miserable half-hour tug-of-war, with the mushrooms feeding on Leo's radiation and regrowing almost as fast as he strips them away. Then Cat finally leaves the granary, creeps across the upgraded store roof, and locks onto the mushroom boxes with hungry interest. Back in the workshop, Leo loses patience, rips away half the infestation in one pull, and crushes the mass into a giant writhing ball. The spores hit Leo's face and get into his mouth and nose, but his radiation kills them instantly, which only makes the situation feel more absurd than safer. Leo almost uses the new cleaning feature when the system marks the infected area, but he stops after learning it would dump everything into the recycling center with half the material lost. What really stops him is the thought that the recycling shed looks too open, so instead of risking a spore outbreak there, Leo chooses to upgrade the workshop itself. He pushes the second alchemy workshop to level 7, maxes pill quality, and for once breaks his usual rule by buying an alchemist automaton too. The workshop expands into a much sturdier 2-story interior, and a new wooden alchemist mannequin rises straight out of the floor. Leo points at the nightmare fungus and orders the new automaton to make pills out of it using whatever ingredients it needs. The alchemist mannequin answers by turning one arm into a giant cleaver and chopping Leo's mushroom ball into neat pieces. That simple cut changes everything, because the chopped mushrooms suddenly stop multiplying the moment the alchemist worker processes them. Realizing the breakthrough, Leo starts feeding the automaton more compressed mushroom masses and the cleanup finally begins to move fast. Once the first box is packed with neutralized fungus, 2 recycling workers carry it out, and Leo follows close behind to make sure the next step does not unleash a new mess. The moment Leo emerges with the sealed box, Hua Jiashan sees the mushrooms up close again. His old fear surges back, and he faints on the spot. Feeling a little guilty, Leo tosses them a modern inhalant stick and shouts quick instructions without slowing down. Wu Bai takes Leo's wording painfully literally, and rams the inhalant straight into Hua Jiashan's nose, horrifying the entire sect for one awkward second. The ridiculous treatment works, and when Hua Jiashan wakes up calmer and keeps breathing in the pleasant scent, the other elders start eyeing the little stick like a treasure. Then Cat drops from the store roof, plants herself in front of the workshop, and starts reaching inside with her roots before anyone understands what she is about to do. Hua Jiashan is already shaken by Cat's monstrous aura, but he completely breaks when she happily scoops up chopped mushroom pieces and eats them. The sect master immediately faints again, leaving his followers scrambling around him while Leo is already deeper in the recycling center checking the disposal process. At the recycling center, Leo watches the workers dump the infected mushrooms into a glowing blue pool and sees the fungus dissolve into harmless dust almost instantly. Instead of backing away from the suspicious blue liquid, Leo decides the fastest way to test it is to strip down and jump in himself. With the energy of a stunt idiot who somehow survives everything, Leo cannonballs into the pool like he is opening a bad reality show. The liquid turns out to feel more like a hot spring than acid, and Leo happily swims around while layers of grime wash out of his pores in rainbow swirls. Even swallowing the water does nothing to him, so Leo cheerfully decides the recycling center has accidentally given him a private swimming pool. While Leo splashes around, the recycling system quietly starts working in the background as drains pull away waste and a machine beside the pool powers on. A few seconds later, the machine spits out blue marble-like stones onto a moving belt, and the glittering orbs drop into a collection pool like freshly minted spirit stones. After a quick bath, Leo comes back to the workshop and immediately notices the wooden workers returned without the zombie mushrooms. Since the mannequins cannot explain anything, Leo sends them to clear weeds in the backyard and hurries off to find out what happened himself. At the workshop entrance, Leo spots Hua Jiashan and the sect elders still tending to Hua Jiashan, which only makes the missing mushrooms feel stranger. The real culprit is Cat, happily stuffing the dangerous mushrooms into her mouth while the spores cling to her skin but somehow fail to infect her. Leo tries to explain that the mushrooms spread a zombie disease, and Cat goes from confused to horrified the moment she understands she has been eating them. Cat bursts into tears, but her chomper mouth keeps chewing anyway and rewards Leo with a foul lick to the face. Even after that gross inspection, Leo is relieved because there is still no sign that the zombie fungus can actually grow inside Cat. Inside the workshop, Leo finds most of the mushroom crop already gone, and only a few cut pieces left behind by the missing alchemy mannequin. When Leo looks up, he discovers a few mushrooms still clinging to the corners of the roof, barely surviving until his own radiation makes them surge toward him again. That confirms the problem for Leo, so he scrapes the last living patches into a container and stops the outbreak at the source. With the crisis contained, Leo decides the mushrooms can wait until he has a safer building and plans to dump them back into the recycling pool for now. Outside, Cat is still sobbing, so Leo calms her down by assuring her she is immune and not turning into any kind of zombie. The instant Cat believes him, she switches from crying to clingy and nearly swallows half of Leo in a slobbery thank you kiss before crawling back to the granary. Right after Cat leaves, the alchemy mannequin finally reappears from the granary carrying potatoes, as if it had quietly solved the missing ingredient problem on its own. The mannequin drops in 10 potato pieces and 1 sweet dream mushroom, and Leo casually spits fire essence into the furnace to start a new batch of hope and dream pills. The timer hits almost a full week, and Leo can only grimace at how long this one cauldron will stay occupied. Then the mannequin places both hands on the cauldron, and Leo learns a hidden rule. Workshop automatons can boost quality and quantity, and multiple helpers can even cut the refining time. When Leo turns back toward the elders, he finds the whole group staring at the self-working cauldron like they just witnessed forbidden sorcery. Hua Jiashan finally blurts out the real shock. Why would Leo let a golem refine pills when any normal alchemist would do it personally? Leo makes it worse by casually saying he is already handling 2 batches at once and might do 3 in the future. That answer is too much for Wu Bai, and the elder goes rigid and faints on his feet from pure alchemy shock. Leo tosses over fresh inhalant sticks, but Hua Jiashan greedily snatches the whole bundle first and looks suspiciously practiced at it. After the others revive Wu Bai, Leo gives up on explaining himself and quietly dumps the mushroom box into the recycling center like planned. An hour and another bath later, Leo returns to find the sect group still glued to the cauldron, staring through it with obsessive focus. Leo checks the timer, sees the process is done, and opens the lid without any ceremony at all. 30 hope and dream pills rise from the cauldron, and the batch quality is so absurd that the entire crowd is left speechless. Wu Bai takes the blow worst of all, drooling and half-broken as he wonders why he wasted 60 years on inferior methods. Hua Jiashan formally thanks Leo for opening their eyes, and Leo shamelessly accepts the praise like this whole miracle was his deliberate lesson. Hua Jiashan pushes further and asks Leo to teach the sect disciples, but Leo refuses to hand over the technique itself. Leo softens the blow by allowing the disciples to watch, which is enough to thrill Hua Jiashan and drag Wu Bai's shattered mind back for a moment. Once the demonstration ends, the deal is settled. The Life Sword sect will send free helpers. Hua Jiashan buys 100 inhalant sticks, and Tiger Swordsman arranges produce sellers for Leo. Everyone else leaves happy, but Wu Bai stays behind in front of the store, throwing himself at Leo's feet and begging to be accepted as a disciple. Leo refuses the disciple request, but Wu Bai instantly negotiates for something smaller and asks to at least watch him refine pills. Leo agrees as long as Wu Bai does not interfere, and that tiny permission sends the old alchemist into tearful worship all over again. Wu Bai pushes his luck one step farther by asking to bring sect disciples too, and Leo, too tired to care, tells him to do whatever he wants. As Wu Bai runs off to the workshop, Leo quietly accepts that the elder has basically made himself into a subordinate now. With that settled, Leo checks his remaining lifespan, remembers how much he has already burned on upgrades, and decides to build the most expensive structure first. He chooses the southwest corner of his domain, and the system clears the land automatically while sending part of the removed trees to the recycling center. Then the Mystic Realm portal rises from nothing, a concrete platform, a blue steel ring, 4 scorpion tail obelisks, and a pillar of blue light shooting into the sky. Leo inspects the portal and learns the basics. It is ready, currently leads to an unknown low plane, lasts 10 days when opened, and normally needs an 80 to 90 day cooldown. The catch is brutal because every portal upgrade costs 10,000 years, and Leo almost chokes on the price. Just as Leo starts planning around the cost, Wu Bai screams somewhere behind the store because his mind clearly cannot survive another impossible building. By night, Leo keeps spending anyway, pushing the first workshop, warehouse, granary, and 2 farm plots all the way to level 7. He also builds a third alchemy workshop beside the second one and tunes it for top pill quality, extra quantity, and one assisting automaton. After that, Leo adds another farm and sets all the farm upgrades the same way, favoring quality over output volume. 3 automaton farmers rise from the ground and immediately start sowing seeds from the granary, proving the whole farm system can now run by itself. Seeing the production side take shape, Leo turns to the next problem and starts building houses for the future workers he expects the sect to send. He places all 3 available small houses east of the store, only to find that the base version is a miserable straw shack. Leo tests the upgrade system on one house, and the shack instantly transforms into a clean concrete home. Inside, the space is far bigger than the exterior suggests, and Leo is genuinely thrilled to discover that the upgraded house comes with its own modern toilet. For one tempting minute, Leo considers moving in, but he reins himself in and decides to wait for an even better future house. That is when Wu Bai appears at the door looking half dead, pale and sweating, after apparently watching Leo build miracles all day. Wu Bai weakly demands an explanation for the impossible buildings and the mystic round portal, and Leo answers by flicking a healing grain pill into his mouth first. Once Wu Bai recovers a little, Leo sidesteps the real question by assigning him this house so he can stay and study here properly. Wu Bai looks around at the lights, cool air, and strange wall holes, and Leo quickly warns him not to stick his fingers into the outlets unless he wants lightning to kill him. Instead of being scared off, Wu Bai becomes even more excited because he can sense fire and lightning-like essence in the building and asks if he can cultivate here. Leo has no idea how to answer that, so he gives the old alchemist a flat warning not to get himself killed and leaves him alone. The moment Leo is gone, Wu Bai inspects the floor, the outlets, and the hidden power in the walls like he has discovered a mythical lightning training chamber. After nearly giving himself another stroke from excitement, Wu Bai decides to test it by sending his chi directly into the outlet. It goes exactly as badly as Leo warned. The current surges back through his chi, the breaker trips, and Wu Bai gets electrocuted in the dark. Leo kept expanding his little empire, and with just over 17,000 years of lifespan left, he stared at 2 new building options, a clothing store and a livestock shed. He hesitated for a moment because the next store upgrade alone cost 7,000 years, but greed won and Leo decided to build everything he could. He placed the clothing store west of the general store as the start of a shopping district, and a shabby wooden cabin rose from the ground. Inside the dark little shop, Leo found almost nothing except one creepy wooden mannequin standing alone and staring at him. The menu showed a clothing store built around weavers and research, and Leo realized it might work more like a tailoring factory than a normal shop. When he pressed research, the system explained that the weaver needed a clothing sample or pattern, and after that it could automatically gather materials and reproduce the design. Curious what it could really do, Leo pushed the clothing store all the way to level 7 and maxed the weaver skill, leaving only 1 point in store quality. The automaton changed with the upgrade too, turning into a female-made mannequin with cat ears, expressive brows, and an oddly polished figure. Leo snorted that her chest was fake, and to his surprise the maid mannequin looked genuinely offended and sulked in a corner. Realizing she actually had feelings, Leo awkwardly apologized and called her beautiful to calm her down. She answered by twisting her head around like a horror movie doll, which nearly threw Leo off even as he decided he kind of liked her weirdness. When Leo asked what she could do, the mannequin silently pointed him back to the research menu, making it clear he needed to feed her a design first. Leo remembered the dresses he had already sold before, bought one online again, and unpacked a fresh evening dress as a sample. The mannequin lit up, accepted the dress with obvious delight, and the system confirmed she had researched a common evening dress and would try to improve it. Then she showed him how the shop really worked by splitting her hands into dense nail-like tools and sucking in Leo's radiating aura like fuel. White silver thread started spilling from her wrists like a living 3D printer, and Leo realized the automaton could turn his strange energy directly into sewing material. Leo tried to leave her to work, but the mannequin quietly followed him outside and kept stealing his aura as if she needed a stronger source. Thinking she wanted more of his essence, Leo spat into a glass and offered it to her, but the mannequin recoiled in open disgust. She stabbed at Leo's arm instead, failed to pierce his skin, and after a bizarre back and forth he finally understood that what she wanted was his skin. Leo braced himself, grabbed a hangnail on his pinky, and started ripping with full force even though he knew it was going to hurt badly. The hangnail peeled into a long strip of skin from his hand up his forearm, and Leo nearly choked on the pain while mercury-like blood seeped out. He handed the glowing strip over, and his arm regenerated almost instantly, leaving him only angry and itchy from how much it hurt. The overjoyed mannequin fed Leo's skin into her arm mechanism, and her output jumped from pale thread to a faster flood of rainbow-infused material. Without even thanking him, she hurried back into the clothing store to work, and Leo could only mutter a dry "you're welcome" while scratching his still itchy forearm. That experiment drained Leo down to just over 10,000 years of lifespan, so he gave up on the livestock shed and chose to push the main store to level 8 instead. The upgrade transformed the humble store into a 2-story brick building, and inside Leo found a huge mall-like interior that completely dwarfed his old setup. He climbed upstairs and saw 20 partition rooms on each floor, which only made the empty space feel even more overwhelming. Instead of celebrating, Leo sat on the stairs and worried about agoraphobia, empty shelves, and the nightmare of future shoplifters in a place this big. That fear turned into a plan, and Leo started thinking about recruiting the Life Sword sect elders as permanent security. Looking out toward his mystic realm portal, he pushed the idea further and wondered if access to the gate could let him found something like a sect or a company of his own. With too much on his mind, Leo called it a day, and the next morning he stepped outside for his usual routine only to find Wu Bai kneeling in front of the store. Wu Bai urgently reported that the house had mysteriously lost its lightning and fire chi source, and Leo immediately suspected he had broken something again. Inside the house, Leo spotted the scorched electrical outlet at a glance and understood that Wu Bai had simply shorted the power. He flipped the breaker back on, and the lights and air conditioner came alive so easily that Wu Bai looked at him like a miracle worker. When Wu Bai begged to be taught how to restore the chi source, Leo finally exploded and screamed at him for sticking a finger in the outlet after being told not to. After the outburst, Leo lowered his voice and gave Wu Bai a simple rule: if the lever is down, flip it back up, and if that does not fix it, the damage is his fault. Leo left the chastened alchemist to his own work and went to inspect the workshops behind the store. There he found the warehouse mannequins doing far more than he expected, sprinting between workshops, granary, warehouse, and fields as a full logistics crew. The teamwork meant Leo no longer had to collect pills or feed ingredients by hand, and for a moment he was thrilled that the mannequins could handle the daily grind for him. But the automation had a flaw too, because Leo never updated their orders. Each workshop kept making the same products endlessly. The worst problem was the rejuvenate tea, because the mannequins started pouring it into any container they could find and turned the whole area into a wasteful mess. Leo bought proper barrels and finally gave the third workshop a clear order to use only those for tea from now on. Then he spent hours cleaning up the damage himself, dumping ruined liquids and sorting spirit stones and essence stones out of the contaminated containers one by one. By late noon he was starving, so he went back into the giant store for food and still flinched at the warped sense of distance inside. He reached the center, grabbed golden sand bananas, and ate while staring at all the empty room around him and imagining how nice it would be to rent the side shops out. Right as he was thinking about tenants and allies, Tiger Swordsman returned with Magpie City representatives and local merchants to finalize a trade deal. The moment they looked inside, Tiger Swordsman and the merchants were stunned by the impossible size of the interior and had to check the building again from outside. Too lazy to walk over, Leo just waved them in from where he was, and the whole group nervously entered the strange oversized shop. Leo offered his usual rough wooden seats, and the visitors sat down tense and polite, while he casually kept chewing on a rare banana right in front of them. He apologized for not serving tea because one worker had ruined several gallons, then casually ate the banana peel too, which only made the crowd more unsure what kind of man they were dealing with. Tiger Swordsman finally got to business and explained that the merchants agreed to supply fruit and vegetables, but they wanted an advance payment as insurance on the long-term deal. The merchants carefully asked for 1 spirit stone per firm each month, 5 in total, and promised regular weekly deliveries once the payment was made. Leo asked how much produce that would buy, and the city men and merchants listed their offers in stones of goods until he judged the price acceptable. Since spirit stones were easy for him to get, Leo agreed on the spot and simply asked where to sign. The merchants hurriedly prepared brush, ink, and contracts, and when they asked for a seal stamp, Leo could only say he would write his name himself. As Leo picked up the brush, he looked calm on the outside but internally panicked because writing his name in Chinese still did not come naturally to him. His hand betrayed him, and instead of a proper signature, Leo smoothly drew a smiling alligator head in the contract's signature space. Then he wrote his Taoist title underneath, and the whole room could only stare and slowly sound it out as Fulualita before Leo buried his face in his hand and corrected them. It's Florida. Once the merchants and city officials leave satisfied, Leo keeps Tiger Swordsman behind because he has a bigger plan in mind. Leo bluntly asks how someone starts a new sect here, and Tiger Swordsman is stunned that he is serious. Tiger Swordsman explains that a sect needs a real cultivation base first, usually land with a usable chi source for disciples and elders. While listening, Leo checks his shop options and realizes the new buildings look modern, expensive, and mostly useless for normal sect needs. Then Leo remembers Wu Bai sensed fire and lightning chi in the houses, and that gives him a testable idea. Leo invites Tiger Swordsman to inspect one of the modern houses for himself. Inside the sealed house, Tiger Swordsman is immediately baffled by the strange architecture and the lack of open windows. When Leo calls it just a house, Tiger Swordsman blurts out that this place feels far too precious for ordinary people to live in. Tiger Swordsman says the house is packed with intense fire chi and even a lightning-like chi that feels as dangerous as heavenly tribulation. Leo pushes the idea further and asks whether disciples could cultivate that chi from outside the building. After testing the area outside, Tiger Swordsman shakes his head and says the chi cannot be used from beyond the walls. Even with that limit, Leo sees a possible answer for his future sect, but now he needs a lot more lifespan to build it. So Leo switches from planning to baiting the market, sends Tiger Swordsman to wait, and comes back with a leather bag stuffed with essence stones. Tiger Swordsman is stunned when Leo hands him the bag and asks him to report to the Imperial Court that he is hoarding essence stones and can get more. Leo explains he wants the Empire's attention on purpose, because powerful visitors mean new customers and commissions for Tiger Swordsman too. Tiger Swordsman warns that the Imperial Court's people might come to extort taxes, but Leo only smiles harder and says that would be even better. With no good answer for that madness, Tiger Swordsman leaves carrying the stones to spread Leo's message and news of his plan to found a new sect. Left alone again, Leo starts plotting how to turn his store into rentable booths and charge future workers and elders in lifespan. A day later in Phoenix City, Ouyang Feng and Qing Yuanji finally stagger back from Leo's territory in miserable shape. The Ouyang clansmen are horrified, because Ouyang Feng still cannot even stand after Leo's sound attack and collapses the moment help arrives. Qing Yuanji lasts only a moment longer before his own injuries and fever drop him cold to the ground. Half a day later, Qing Yuanji wakes in an Ouyang room with a heavy head and Ouyang waiting beside the bed. Ouyang gently steadies him with medicinal tea and asks the one question he really cares about: who ruined his grandson? Qing Yuanji tells him everything about Leo, from the pill-making and green lightning tribulation to crushing Situluan's side and their own defeat. Ouyang decides they clearly ran into Ouyang Long's killer and scoffs that Leo is probably an upstart rogue quasi-immortal fresh out of seclusion. He also points out that since Leo killed Situluan, the Situ clan and likely the Imperial Court will hear about him soon through the factory cult's ties to the Third Prince. Then Ouyang shifts to the part that interests him most and asks whether Qing Yuanji saw other Situ clan people nearby. Qing Yuanji remembers spotting Situ clan people hiding in the forest and around Magpie City, which confirms to Ouyang that more forces were involved than appeared. Before leaving, Ouyang coldly scolds Qing Yuanji for attacking someone stronger, because even a wounded tiger is still a tiger. After Ouyang leaves, Qing Yuanji keeps sipping the herbal tea, but it feels unnaturally mellow and his thoughts start slipping away. A few breaths later, Qing Yuanji falls asleep forever, the poison in Ouyang's tea finishing him in silence. Outside the room, Ouyang sneers that the fool almost got Ouyang Feng killed and orders the corpse cleaned up without a trace. Elsewhere, surviving Situ clan witnesses also report back, and news of Leo's strength starts rippling through the major powers. In his residence, Situ Nantian meditates to remote intelligence and keeps hearing one irritating mystery over and over: Florida. When more reports arrive about an essence stone being traded for a high-grade flying sword, Situ Nantian finally opens his eyes in shock. He wants to go after Leo at once, but the coming Mystic Realm expedition ties his hands, so he decides to visit after it ends. Back in Magpie City, Leo's arrival has changed Life Sword Sect, and with rare pills and essence resources in hand, disciples and elders are all cultivating like mad. That frenzy leaves the city thinly guarded, which opens the door for outside spies to flood in unnoticed. In one alley, 3 factory cult agents pay a merchant for local gossip and learn that Leo has been openly commissioning huge amounts of fruits and vegetables. The spies talk it through and decide that if Florida Man is really a quasi-immortal alchemist, gathering ordinary produce could make sense as raw material. By nightfall they vanish into the shadows with the report, but the rumor is already spreading through farmers, merchants, and travelers. Spies also catch a more explosive trail when a Life Sword Sect elder sneaks into the slum black market and trades an essence stone for a high-grade flying sword. That sale detonates through the underworld and the sect world alike, because the flying sword is worth a fortune and the essence stone's source is unknown. Within a day, the rumor reaches the Yen Empire, where even the throne can no longer ignore Life Sword Sect and Florida Man. At Cauliflower City Palace, Emperor Yen Xiang reads the collected reports in a golden throne room packed with powerful officials from every major faction. After hours of silence, the Emperor finally looks up and asks a question that freezes the whole court: what is Florida? A Situ clansman steps forward and carefully explains that Florida seems to be a new Dao tied to a rogue cultivator called Florida Man near Magpie City. When Yen Xiang asks for the Life Sword Sect representative, nobody can answer, and the silence instantly turns dangerous. The Emperor realizes the small sect has been shut out of imperial communication for centuries, and his mood turns ice cold. He openly calls out the court for shutting small sects out of aid and communication, making the Jianghu Alliance and neighboring powers break into sweat. When nobody answers, Yen Xiang unleashes his quasi-immortal pressure, and the entire hall slams down to the floor coughing blood. Only Chancellor Tang stays composed enough to answer, quietly pointing out that Life Sword Sect was likely suppressed by the Factory Cult and Death Sword Sect for 500 years. That answer sets Yen Xiang off, and he hurls his teacup at the factory's side before roaring that equality between sects was the Empire's founding rule. To force an answer, he seizes a factory elder and a Death Sword elder with invisible power and lifts them choking into the air. At that point the third prince Yen Zhu finally stands up and admits the order came from him. Yen Zhu argues that weak little sects should not count as official organizations unless they can at least produce a soul transformation cultivator. Yen Xiang sees straight through that excuse and snaps back that Yen Zhu just wanted the big sects to monopolize imperial essence stones. To buy room, Yen Zhu shifts the argument and says Life Sword Sect may be illegally dealing in essence stones from some hidden new source. He ties that claim directly back to Florida Man, insisting the answer to Florida may also be the answer to the new essence stones. Then Yanzhu volunteers to lead the Factory cult and his own army to Magpie City, clearly angling to handle the problem himself under the name of investigation. Yan Xiang refuses to let his son turn this into a purge, so he orders Chancellor Tang and the Pill Union to go along and investigate everyone thoroughly. The chapter closes on Yan Xiang giving Chancellor Tang full authority to punish absolutely anyone, even imperial blood, and Tang accepts with a pleasant smile that only makes Yanzhu look grimmer. With his workers handling other jobs, Leo spends the day outside clearing terrain and mutating the nearby plants around his domain. While he works, Leo spots a huge group of watchers hiding 200 meters away in the trees and decides to act like he never saw them. He drags the last iron pine tree to the empty lot near the junkyard and strips bark and branches from the log as the stalkers creep closer. The spies still refuse to attack or speak, and their silent hovering starts to get on Leo's nerves. After finishing his 10th log, Leo leaves the resource hauling to the mannequins and heads for the southwest edge of his land with a new plan. Leo steps across the Mystic Realm portal platform, reaches the boundary for the first time, and the hidden observers scatter the moment he comes too close. Outside the boundary, Leo finds a blue forest tainted by iron pine aura, and every plant he touches instantly blackens and turns into an iron pine tree. Once he understands the trick, Leo starts ripping the transformed trees out and hurling them back over the portal platform like a man throwing footballs. The lurkers back away and keep watching, so Leo calmly keeps clearing every tree he can reach and ignores the smaller bushes that waste time. An hour later, he has already torn out 200 iron pine trees and cleared a huge patch of land. The exposed ground ruins the spies' hiding spots, and Leo makes it worse by bringing out 3 warehouse mannequins to strip away bushes and immortal grass too. The stalkers realize what he is doing and are forced to keep relocating as the safe cover around his domain disappears. By sunset, Leo has gone full beast mode and uprooted his 2000th tree, with logs piled all over the domain and the workshop mannequins still processing non-stop. To admire his work, Leo jumps 500 meters into the sky and laughs at the giant bald ring he has carved around the domain. Even that is not enough for him yet, because Leo wants a fully cleared border where nobody can sneak close to his land again. Satisfied for one day, Leo heads back inside, throws himself onto the bed, and falls asleep. At midnight, a wooden mannequin quietly enters Leo's room and leans over his sleeping face, red lenses glowing in the dark. When staring does nothing, the mannequin pokes Leo's mouth, but he just keeps snoring through it. It comes back with Cat's bucket of mutated water and starts dripping it into Leo's sleeping mouth one drop at a time. The mannequin keeps that up all night, turning Leo's sleep into a deeply weird forced hydration session. When Leo wakes up, his mouth feels weirdly moist and bitter, and the taste instantly reminds him of Cat. He opens his eyes and finds an unnamed workshop mannequin still hovering 2 centimeters from his face like a horror prop. Leo pushes the mannequin away and asks if it ran out of containers, and it nods like all this was perfectly normal. Then Leo notices Cat's empty water bucket on the floor and finally pieces together why his mouth tastes so awful. He decides the mannequin was not the problem at all and blames Cat for pulling a nasty prank on him. Right on cue, Cat starts pounding on the front door and screaming for her missing bucket back. Leo just snickers, grabs the bucket and his toothbrush gear, and starts another slow, peaceful morning. At noon, Hanhao arrives on foot from Magpie City with 19 outer disciples ready to become Leo's new helpers. The disciples are stunned by the devastation, because the sacred sword Saint Boulder now sits in plain view as part of Leo's newly exposed territory. On the way in, Hanhao spots Wu Bai busy concocting pills outside his house and quietly tells the disciples not to disturb him. Gao Yan came hoping to greet his master, but the sight of all these buildings, farms, and working mannequins leaves him too shocked to even start. The newcomers watch the domain in disbelief as farmer bots harvest giant potatoes and a yellow jacket mannequin calmly cleans up branches and iron pine leaves. When a disciple peeks down the alley and spots the alchemy workshops, everyone instantly realizes Gao Yan has landed in a dream training ground. Hanhao shuts the chatter down, but even he is unsettled after sensing many hidden observers still watching the place from the distant forest. As soon as Hanhao knocks and calls for Leo, Cat pops out from the granary and marches over to demand her usual nom-nom tax. Hanhao laughs, tosses Cat a dead horse from his spatial ring, and the monster happily catches her payment before hauling it back to the granary. The disciples are horrified to learn that this thing is Leo's pet, and Hanhao bluntly warns them to obey if they do not want to get eaten. A few minutes later, Leo finally comes out brushing his teeth for the 8th time that day and casually greets the whole group. Leo spots Gao Yan, asks if he is doing better, and Gao Yan awkwardly admits his master keeps vanishing on him. Leo points out that Wu Bai has been busy working here, just as the old alchemist finishes a batch of 15 high-grade Yang Flame Dawn and starts cursing his own flaws. The moment Wu Bai notices Gao Yan, he grabs his disciple and drags him off to study under the Grandmaster Golem alchemists. Leo and Hanhao watch that chaos in mutual silence, then move on to the real handover about the new workers. Leo confirms the disciples are free labor from the sect, and Hanhao asks only that he house them and maybe reward them with a few pills if he feels generous. Leo casually says feeding them is easy because he has enough element grain pills and rejuvenate tea for 1,000 years, which leaves Hanhao openly jealous. Hanhao immediately begs for a few bottles of tea as payment for his trouble, and Leo actually goes to get them. When Leo returns with 4 cold bottles, Hanhao is shocked to realize the rejuvenate tea is pinnacle grade. Leo proudly calls it the pinnacle of all tea, while an unnamed workshop mannequin in the background silently looks offended because it actually made the stuff. After that, Leo guides Hanhao and the disciples inside and grandly introduces the store like some impossible fantasy mansion. Inside, the crowd is stunned by the giant space and second floor, but Hanhao is even more baffled that almost the whole building is still empty. Leo immediately explains the emptiness. The 19 blank rooms are now temporary housing for the 19 disciples. He gives them only 100 breaths to pick a room and dump their belongings, and the disciples explode into a frantic scramble. Their muddy sandals and cloth shoes immediately dirty Leo's clean white floor, and his face darkens the second he notices. Hanhao sees that bright fake smile forming on Leo's face, realizes free labor is about to be abused, and quickly excuses himself. Leo lets him go with a warning about all the eyes around the domain, and Hanhao heads back knowing that part is absolutely true. Once the disciples gather again, Leo checks their floating lifespan values and quietly notes that even these sekyus do not match Yao Qiqi's raw potential. He lays out the basic rule of his business: everyone has a lifespan, he can make them see it, and lifespan itself can be spent like money here. The disciples get so fascinated by their numbers that they start mocking each other over who has less time left, and Leo has to shut the noise down. Leo's first official order is brutally simple: mop the filthy floor and never walk into his store with shoes on again. He shows them the public toilet and utility faucet by his bedroom, and the disciples nearly lose their minds when clean water pours out with no visible chi. Leo is done entertaining the culture shock, so he orders them to wash up, take off their shoes, and start cleaning right now. 2 hours later, with both floors finally clean, Leo gathers the disciples again to explain what their real daily work will be. He takes them upstairs to the window and points out the farmlands, where the mannequins are still awkwardly harvesting absurdly huge potatoes. The disciples are amazed those things are really potatoes, and Leo dryly confirms this kind of harvesting will now be part of their routine. Leo hands out oversized orange rubber boots and marches the disciples straight out toward the fields. Once the disciples join in, the harvest speeds up fast, and together they clear all 3 potato farms into the granary. With the potato fields emptied, Leo immediately reassigns the farms so one keeps growing potatoes while the other 2 switch to tomatoes and chilies. As soon as the seeds hit the soil, matching 24-hour growth timers appear, and Leo is honestly relieved nothing new will overflow his nearly full granary today. After the fieldwork, Leo gives the disciples some free time inside the domain, but he warns them not to wander beyond the boundary because the watchers are still out there. The second Leo releases them, the disciples cheer and race for the alchemy workshops like kids who just found treasure. Watching from the forest, Ouyang clan spies decide these new disciples look like perfect hostages to use against Leo. Factory cult lurkers reach the same conclusion and send word that Leo's disciples and Gao Yan could be taken for leverage. The Situ clan takes the opposite path, as their agents relay Situ Nanshan's order not to touch the disciples and to wait for a better way in. That caution wins out, and the Situ agents pull back from the area while the other factions stay fixated on kidnapping plans. Then a new force reaches the Sword Saint Forest, because Imperial Court agents arrive with heavyweight backing that dwarfs the local spies. At the head of the Imperial group, Chancellor Tang stands out as the quasi-immortal leading the investigation into Leo's essence stones. Unlike the lurking factions, Chancellor Tang simply steps out of the shade and walks straight into Leo's domain with the Imperial party behind him. Leo notices the fancy newcomers from the south, spots one unusual rainbow aura among them, and greets the whole approach with amused curiosity. The old man at the front reminds Leo of his uncle from Ohio, so he waits for the group with a weirdly friendly smile instead of any caution. When the Imperial group stops in front of him, Chancellor Tang raises a golden scroll and formally orders Leo to accept the Emperor's decree. Leo just stands there confused, because he has no idea he is supposed to kneel before the decree as if the Emperor himself were present. That accidental insult enrages the entourage, and Imperial officials behind Tang draw swords and scream for the peasant to kneel. Instead of backing down, Leo breaks into a pleased smile and welcomes the fresh conflict like he just found today's entertainment. When Leo refuses to kneel for the Imperial decree, Tang Xian and Yi Tianxia immediately read it as open defiance. Yi Tianxia coldly warns Leo to show respect or be treated as a rebel, and Leo almost happily dares them to try arresting him. Yi Tianxia wants blood, but one glance from Tang Xian tells him not to start a fight with someone this mysterious. Tang Xian keeps reading and announces the ugly law first: unauthorized essence stones belong to the Empire, and refusal can doom a whole family line. Leo mocks the Empire's law so openly that the officials behind Tang Xian start circulating qi and itching for a fight. Then Tang Xian drops the real twist. Because Life Sword sect never joined the annual court meetings, the Emperor is offering Leo and the sect a special permit instead of punishment. Tang Xian goes further and reads a one-year monopoly exception, saying Leo and Life Sword sect can keep and control the new essence stone source for now. Yu Tianxia snaps, grabs the scroll, and realizes the decree really does protect Leo instead of authorizing a kill and seize operation. Tang Xian shuts Yu Tianxia's protest down with one icy question, and the younger official is forced to back off. Leo is the one left disappointed now, because the visitors came to negotiate instead of giving him an excuse to strike back. He still refuses the court's invitation and makes it plain that neither his essence stones nor the sex stones are going anywhere. Tang Xian answers smoothly that the emperor is not trying to force him, and even hints that he personally has the pull to change laws if Leo wants. With the old chancellor refusing to become the villain, Leo shifts tactics and studies the split between the friendly elder and the furious men behind him. Leo suddenly pops lifespan status windows in front of the visitors, exposing Tang Xian's age and the years everyone has left. The whole group is shaken, but Tang Xian only smiles and admits this ability would have changed a lot 1,000 years ago. Leo uses the moment to finally introduce himself properly as Florida Man, a merchant who trades rare goods for lifespan. Tang Xian immediately returns the courtesy and promises the imperial court is not Leo's enemy, which only frustrates Leo more. Still trying to tempt someone into a bad move, Leo pulls out a fresh essence stone and openly offers it for 10 years of lifespan. The price shocks them, but the fresh quality of the stone shocks them even more because it looks untouched by repeated extraction. Yi Tianxia secretly warns his men not to buy, fearing Leo could later use their own illegal purchase against them. Tang Xian skips the bait and calmly asks the real question: where did Leo get a new source of essence stones? When Leo stays vague, Tang Xian presses harder and guesses the truth outright. Leo may have learned how to convert spirit stones into essence stones. Leo gives nothing away, so Tang Xian smoothly backs off and asks to see what else the store sells. Leo leads Tang Xian inside, but the rest of the delegation hangs back outside still looking for trouble. Outside, the idol agents notice disciples in the alley showing off thorn vines from the junkyard, and greedy eyes immediately lock onto them. The men quickly recognize the vines as valuable treasure-grade material, the kind clans would pay a fortune for. Yu Tianxia marches over flashing imperial authority and declares the disciples under arrest for carrying contraband. The disciples are too stunned to understand, and that hesitation is all the agents need. The imperial men kick the kids aside and rip the thorn vines out of their hands, stealing the lot on the spot. Wu Bai hears the commotion from the workshop, rushes over, and finds grown men robbing children in broad daylight. Even outnumbered, Wu Bai plants himself in front of the disciples and throws out his cauldron, demanding the stolen weapons back. The agents mock him and openly threaten to kill him in self-defense, and sell the children as slaves afterward. Wu Bai catches Cat eavesdropping from the granary, and in one savage decision he turns the whole mess into feeding time. The moment Wu Bai gives the order, Cat explodes out of the granary and bites one man clean in half. As Cat chews, she absorbs the victim's lifespan and turns toward the rest of the group with vicious delight. Wu Bai jumps onto Cat's head like a reckless commander and tells her to keep eating. The surviving cultivators finally stop laughing and realize the plant in front of them is a fourth-stage monster built to kill them. They scramble to arm themselves with artifacts, and Wu Bai instantly notices the flying dishes meant to counter fire. The agents reveal the dishes are not for Cat at all but for Wu Bai, and 5 of them fire blue water beams straight at the alchemist. Cat leaps in front of him, swallows the attack whole, and turns the water chi into actual water that only feeds her more. The attackers can only stare, because they just helped a plant monster instead of hurting it. Yu Tianxia orders them to switch to fire, but his own men hesitate because using fire against an alchemist is usually a terrible idea. Fed up with their panic, Yu Tianxia steps forward himself and threatens Wu Bai and Cat with a quick death if they kneel now. Wu Bai answers with a sneer and calls up his Dao avatar, turning his cauldron into a burning hand wrapped in green wood flame. Cat flinches at the sight of fire, and Wu Bai quickly reassures her that his green flame will strengthen plants instead of burning them. With that fear gone, Cat merges with her Dao avatar and lets the rainbow-tainted power she collected from Leo surge through her body. Wu Bai pours his green flame into Cat, and the borrowed boost pushes her into her real trump card. Cat erupts into a towering new form, with a little girl torso on top, a far larger plant body below, and a new eye opening above her mouth. Her hidden strength is finally exposed as 6th stage, making the whole alley feel like a massacre waiting to happen. Wu Bai is impressed, but the praise goes to Leo for recognizing Cat's potential and feeding it so well. The moment Cat realizes Wu Bai was complimenting Leo instead of her, she pouts in offended silence even in giant form. Below them, the Imperial group breaks completely as everyone realizes they misjudged the monster by 2 whole realms. Yu Tianxia makes it worse by shoving his own men forward and screaming for someone to fetch Chancellor Tang. 2 subordinates sprint for the store, desperate for help, but the entrance refuses to open. An invisible barrier stops their fists a hair short of the door and windows, trapping Tang Xian and Leo inside on purpose. Inside the store, Leo had locked Tang Xian in with him from the start because he had no intention of letting 200 dirty boots into his clean mall. Tang Xian recognizes the spatial distortion immediately and calmly compares Leo's store to the palace treasury. Then the old chancellor stops at the grain pills, spots poison element stock, and gets genuinely excited to find another poison cultivator's work. Leo answers honestly that the pills are only about 2 weeks old, and Tang Xian treats that like fine news instead of a flaw. Tang Xian keeps shopping, adds immortal grass to his picks, and asks what the immortal grass costs. When Leo quotes both the lifespan price and the spirit stone equivalent, Tang Xian instantly realizes Leo values 1 year of lifespan at only 10,000 spirit stones. A second later, Tang Xian shocks Leo by deciding to buy every blade of immortal grass in the showcase at once. He even counts the total himself, naming all 520 blades and the full price of 260 million spirit stones without blinking. Leo hesitates at the sheer amount, but Tang Xian brushes it off as a rich alchemist spending money where it matters. To prove his goodwill is real, Tang Xian flicks over a spatial ring full of spirit stones and frames the whole purchase as the price of friendship. Tang Xian openly says quasi-immortals are too rare to waste on pointless grudges, and Leo has to admit the old man is frighteningly sensible. The old chancellor's smile leaves Leo with a bad feeling, because Tang Xian clearly understands far more than he should. Then the banging finally cuts into their conversation as the trapped men outside start yelling for Chancellor Tang to save them. Before anything explodes, Tang Xian is already on edge, because the moment he enters Leo's property he sees a faint square boundary, and recognizes it as a true domain only immortals should control. That sight rattles him, because he knows domains can impose absurd laws or kill intruders outright, just like the deadly poison domain used by his own clan sect. Tang Xian has benefited from a smaller domain before, but Leo's version feels vastly bigger and more terrifying, which leaves the Chancellor awed and genuinely afraid of its owner. When he meets Leo, the fear gets worse, because Tang Xian cannot read Leo's chi or Dao avatar at all, and every instinct in his body screams not to touch him. By now Tang Xian has convinced himself Leo might be a celestial-level expert suppressing his strength, so he is determined to stay polite and buy goodwill with money if he has to. Then the worst possible interruption hits when loud pounding comes from outside and Yi Tianxia's men shout for the Chancellor to save them. Tang Xian curses Yi Tianxia in his head, suddenly realizing his idiot allies attacked inside an immortal's domain without even knowing what they stepped into. He tries to go handle it, only to get stalled by the locked modern door and awkwardly ask Leo for help. Instead of answering right away, Leo freezes with a wicked little smile, because a domain alert has just told him Cat is under attack and offered him a punishment option. Leo is delighted at the free lifespan on offer, but one look at the minimap annoys him, because only a few attackers are marked red instead of the whole mob. He grumbles that they attacked in waves instead of all at once, then decides he still cannot let Cat or Wu Bai die just to farm more lifespan. So Leo gives the order anyway and coldly chooses to take the attacker's lifespan as compensation. A few red dots vanish at once, Leo pockets the gain, and then he smiles at Tang Xian like nothing happened. Leo suggests they step outside to see the commotion, and Tang Xian silently gives way, already dreading what they will find. Outside, both men look up and see Cat in a towering monster form casting a huge shadow over the yard. Leo is baffled by Cat's bizarre new look, but after a quick scan he sees no obvious sickness beyond the blackened roots and vines. Tang Xian notices Cat's shocking cultivation level and asks what happened, but Leo immediately throws the question back toward the men who started the trouble. The moment Tang Xian turns on Yi Tianxia, his fake smile disappears and the Chancellor demands to know what this fool has done. Yi Tianxia's panicked report makes the danger plain, as he grabs Tang Xian and babbles that Cat ate one man and 5 others mysteriously withered into ash. That report confirms Tang Xian's fear, because now he knows Leo has already used domain power to kill men without lifting a hand. While Tang Xian fights to steady himself, Leo quietly backs away into the farmland, keeping distance from the rainbow or a monster on pure survival instinct. Then Cat goes wild and slams a giant thorn vine down between Wu Bai and the store, blasting open the alley with one brutal strike. The nascent soul cultivators scramble away and unleash everything they have, filling the air with beams, sword chi, spears, daggers, and bullets that hammer into Cat's giant body. 5 attackers even merge with their Dao avatars into towering giants and rush her in close combat, desperate to overwhelm her by force. Cat answers by shooting out a frog-like tongue, snatching one giant clean out of the air, and chewing him alive. The other giants land solid punches, but they barely dent Cat at all, which instantly reveals how lopsided this fight really is. With one sweep of her thorn whips, Cat smashes all 4 giants across the field and leaves deep gashes in their stomachs. After those brutal exchanges, the gap is obvious, and Yi Tianxia panics badly enough to beg Tang Xian for help again. Tang Xian refuses to rescue him and coldly says this disaster is self-inflicted, because Yi Tianxia tried to exploit a pet he thought was only 4th stage. Yi Tianxia protests that his spies said Cat was weak, but Tang Xian only calls him a fool and sees that the trap this has become. Tang Xian thinks about killing Yi Tianxia himself, but the political danger of the life brand on him forces the Chancellor to hold back. Before he can decide anything else, Tang Xian notices Leo in the fields casually helping a mannequin pull up a giant potato, and eating it raw like the massacre is just background noise. Leo checks the result he wanted from Cat's endurance, raises his hand, and gives one quiet command that will haunt Tang Xian forever: to cinder. The instant Leo snaps, Tang Xian feels the entire domain bear down on everyone and realizes the real slaughter is only starting now. One after another, Yi Tianxia's men puff into ash, and Tang Xian watches their life force tear free and flow straight into Liu. That finally lets Tang Xian solve the mystery. Liu's domain is built around lifespan, and the whole strange store runs on the power to harvest life from the dead and manipulate years directly. Tang Xian immediately decides the empire cannot afford to provoke Liu, and he even starts planning to turn Yan Zhu into bait for a future suicidal attack instead. The next time Liu goes still, Tang Xian seizes the opening and flees the domain in a single burst, escaping 10 kilometers away before daring to breathe. Outside the domain, his hands are still shaking with sweat, and after hours to calm down he abandons Yan Zhu's side completely and heads back to the capital alone. Back at the property, Liu happily watches the rest of the intruders turn to ash and smiles wider as his lifespan total keeps climbing in real time. From the top of Cat's giant head, Wu Bai watches the carnage in blank approval and decides only idiots would ever try to fight Liu head-on. He gets cheeky enough to pat Cat's human-like head and tease her about the fight, but Cat is not in the mood for that at all. Cat snaps at him, argues that the attacks were not proper food, and swats him right off her head with a vine. As soon as she is done, Cat shrinks back to her usual smaller state. Her cultivation falls to 4th stage again, and she wanders off to the granary like the tantrum is over. Wu Bai crashes down safely only because the domain flashes a thin blue barrier in front of him, quietly softening the fall. After brushing himself off, Wu Bai checks on the disciples and relaxes when he sees them all clustered safely near the warehouse with Gao Yan. Then Wu Bai realizes only one enemy is still left on the property, because Tang Xian has already vanished and Yi Tianxia alone remains somewhere in the aftermath. Yi Tianxia is left stunned by the mass deaths and burns with resentment when Tang Xian abandons him and escapes. From hiding, Yi Tianxia spots Liu calmly poking at an invisible interface in the farmland and realizes provoking him now would be suicide. Then Wu Bai lands nearby and the two men lock eyes, turning the moment into a silent, ugly standoff. Yi Tianxia swallows the humiliation, vows revenge in his heart, and decides escaping alive matters more than pride. Yi Tianxia finally flees east around the domain, notices hidden watchers in the forest mocking him, and heads for Magpie City to rejoin Yan Zhu. Once the intruders are gone, Liu calmly starts looting the field, because rings, weapons, armor, and artifacts are scattered everywhere the dead vanished. The warehouse mannequins know the routine by now, so they come out of hiding and start sweeping up the leftover treasure with eerie efficiency. With the danger over, Gao Yan and the disciples creep out too, still half expecting another clash between experts to start. As they walk, the disciples realize the dead left behind real treasures, and one of them spots a glowing dish lying among the clothes. The first disciple who grabs it gets blasted backward by residual power, and the domain wall quietly saves him from a much nastier impact. Gao Yan tests it next, endures the sting better than the others, and figures out the dish is a water aspect artifact. That discovery sends everyone into treasure hunt mode, and more strange items start turning up across the junkyard and rooftops. The problem is that the disciples cannot actually claim most of the treasures, because the artifacts still reject weak new owners with dangerous counterattacks. The mannequins ignore that rule completely, pick up every dangerous item without care, and haul the whole pile back to the warehouse. Within minutes they dump around 100 captured artifacts into a trash bin inside the warehouse, while the disciples trail behind hoping something usable gets left over. But the easy loot draws other predators too, and hidden vultures in the forest start creeping closer, planning to raid the warehouse at night. Wu Bai senses their killing intent at once, looks toward the forest, and grimly realizes he probably will not get to make pills tonight after all. Wu Bai feels the killing intent around the store and hurries straight to Liu for orders before the hidden enemies can move. Wu Bai warns that the lurkers will likely attack tonight, and offers to hunt them down first. Liu barely looks worried at all and tells Wu Bai to let them come. When Wu Bai doubts that the young disciples can survive a raid, Liu lays down one rule: nobody goes outside after sunset, and he will handle the attackers himself. Wu Bai does not like the plan, but he obeys and gathers the disciples before sundown. He passes on Liu's warning and tells them this is not the Life Sword sect, so nobody is allowed to wander outside at night. The warning only makes the younger disciples more curious, and Wu Bai instantly sees that they are tempted to sneak out later. So Wu Bai drops the soft tone and bluntly tells them that Golden Core and Nascent Soul cultivators are already waiting in the forest to raid the place tonight. That finally works, and even Gao Yan breaks into a cold sweat as the whole group realizes the danger is real. Wu Bai drives the lesson home, reminding them that 200 Nascent Soul cultivators already attacked today, so tonight's lurkers will target Liu's weakness instead of fighting him head-on. When the disciples ask what Liu's weakness is, Wu Bai points straight at them and gives the brutal answer. He presses harder, telling the brats they still have not learned how cruel this world is, even after being robbed and nearly killed before. The disciples grumble about the stolen thorn whips, and Wu Bai shuts that down too, reminding them those treasures belong to Liu, not to them. Then he eases up just enough to promise they can earn artifacts later, if they focus on getting strong first. Motivated at last, the disciples head into the store building to rest and settle into their new quarters before night falls. Only after every disciple is inside does Wu Bai finally retreat to his own house and wait in uneasy seclusion for the night raid. Meanwhile, Leo stands on the Mystic Realm platform grinning at his huge lifespan total after harvesting so much from strong cultivators. He happily opens the domain menu and starts eyeing new structures for his next expansion. Domain expansion catches Leo's eye, because even with lots of territory, too much of his current land is unusable stream and river space. But when he checks the preview, the system reveals a bigger regional map and shows that several neighboring directions are blocked off in red. The larger map lays out Leo's hostile neighborhood too, including Magpie City, the Life Sword Sect, the Death Sword Sect, and Frozen Fire City of the Factory Cult. Seeing how little ground he can actually claim, Leo calls the system cheap. He tries expanding south anyway, only to learn the system makes him unlock each attached block one by one for 10,000 years of lifespan apiece. That price kills his interest on the spot, so Leo cancels the purchase and decides to save his lifespan for more useful facilities. Then the system drops a crucial hint: Mystic Realm Exploration can reward domain expansion tickets that unlock land without spending lifespan. Leo instantly realizes the portal could be his shortcut to free expansion and stares at it like he has found treasure. The idea reminds Leo of old mobile games handing out free tickets, and he bitterly complains that the system only started giving useful tips after 50,000 years. When the system stays silent, Leo gives up on the argument and looks back at the portal with a more practical mindset. He decides the portal has to be upgraded, no matter how expensive it is. The portal ring hums in answer, and Leo spends 70,000 years of lifespan in one shot to raise it to level 8. The whole platform rips free, swells in size, and rises into the sky as a massive flying island above the store. As the flying island finishes forming, 4 huge corner statues appear, each stranger than the last. Leo studies the bizarre labels calling them unfortunate evil overlords, but the statues make no sense to him at all. Before he can think further, the island settles in the sky and casts a huge shadow over the land below. Then something suddenly shoots down from the island toward the store, making Leo rush to see what changed this time. What appears inside the store is a glass elevator shaft linking the floating island directly to the building. Leo steps into the elevator, finds only 3 buttons, and presses the heaven icon just to see where it goes. As the elevator rises through the transparent tube, Leo glances down and sees Wu Bai and the disciples below staring up in total shock. The elevator opens beside the wolf statue's foot, and Leo is delighted that he no longer has to calculate a jump just to reach the portal. He immediately checks the portal status and starts tuning it for safety before his first real exploration. Leo maxes out portal duration to secure 35 days inside the Mystic Realm, trusting extra return time more than any bigger entry team. With the portal set, Leo heads back down to the ground and finds the old platform site turned into a huge square hole. The empty pit gives him a simple idea: maybe he should turn it into a fishing pond. So Leo heads to the recycling center and finds the yellow jacket mannequins still working like tireless lunatics among the junk piles. Leo calls them over and asks if they can dig him a pond where the portal used to be. The mannequins react instantly, sprinting for tools and throwing themselves into the digging job without hesitation. When Leo checks back and sees they can handle hoes and shovels just fine, he praises them and leaves them to it. But Leo makes one dangerous mistake here. He walks away without giving the mannequins a stopping point, or even a pond size. Out in the forest, the hidden spies stare at the flying island in open disbelief before rushing fresh reports back to their factions. The Oyen clan, Sita clan, Factory cult, and Death Sword sect all get the same shocking report after Leo's new show of power. Since fighting Leo head-on now looks even worse, the enemy factions settle on a dirtier plan and decide to take hostages instead. And as night falls, every lurker fixes on the same target for the raid: Leo's disciples sheltering inside the store. Leo pours a fortune into his base, pushing every facility to level 8, and adding a new warehouse and granary until the whole domain feels like a real settlement. The spending hurts anyway, and Leo stares at his remaining lifespan with a fresh wave of pain after burning nearly 100,000 years. Then the system tempts him again with an employee apartment, exactly what he needs for his workers, but the price tag makes him hesitate. He sits at the edge of the island through sunset, weighing whether this one building will quietly demand another crushing chain of upgrades. When night finally settles in, Leo's glowing eyes catch a different problem. More than 100 lurkers are creeping far too close to his boundary. Instead of panicking, Leo almost smiles and glides off toward the junkyard side, already thinking about how to make the intruders strike first. The first team in is a Death Sword sect squad in black masks, and they are not here to win a battle, just to kidnap disciples and use them to chain Leo down. They slip past the busy yellow jacket mannequins, eye the warehouses for loot, and reluctantly keep moving because everyone here knows this place belongs to monsters stronger than them. Then a sudden explosion goes off back at their northern camp, and the captain instantly sends 3 men running back to check whether their escape route has just been hit. At the same time, bigger forces from the Factory cult and the Oyen clan converge from the south and east until Leo's store is quietly surrounded from every side. The Factory agents walk straight up to the front entrance, clearly nervous about Leo, Cat, and the alchemist nearby, but still bold enough to try the door first. Brute force fails immediately when their sword snaps against the invisible protection over the glass, and even chi poured into the door does nothing. A smarter intruder notices the keyhole, unlocks the modern lock with chi, and the whole crowd grins too early, sure the raid is about to become easy. But opening the door only reveals a red energy curtain, and the raiders stall on the threshold because nobody wants to be the fool who walks into a hidden trap. When the other factions arrive, they choose cooperation over infighting and let the Ouyang clan's formation expert inspect the strange barrier for them. The Ouyang expert decides the red curtain is only a sanitation filter, so the clan men go first and step into what looks like a harmless airlock. Inside, they run into another absurd obstacle, a sealed glass room with inner shutters and no obvious handles, like a trap built by someone from another world. Once they spot movement deeper in the store, patience disappears and the front line starts smashing the glass in a rush before Leo can come back. A few minutes earlier inside the store, Gao Yan and the other disciples are jolted awake by repeated impacts from the front windows. The disciples rush out in confusion, look through the building, and finally spot dark cultivator silhouettes massing outside the glass. Panic breaks instantly because they remember Wu Bai's warning, and some disciples nearly bolt for the back before even knowing how to open the strange doors. Gao Yan forces himself to study the attack and realizes the windows are protected by an invisible force, which means Leo's bizarre building is still on their side. With everyone on edge, Gao Yan grabs the room back and tells them to calm down because the attackers still cannot get in and their seniors should return. That confidence lasts right up until the lock clicks open, and for one awful second the whole room thinks the defense has finally failed. Instead, the store answers on its own as heavy shutters slam down and the front entrance transforms into a locked security chamber that traps the intruders outside the real interior. The magical lockdown steadies them for a moment, but the pounding and killing intent from the trapped cultivators keep getting louder, and the fear comes roaring back. Gao Yan makes the call and drives everyone upstairs, hoping the second floor will buy them a little more time. Up on the empty second floor, the disciples find only rows of bare rooms and a strange elevator, and desperation turns that machine into their best guess for escape. Even with the building shaking below them, nobody dares touch the controls until Gao Yan decides hesitation is worse than guessing wrong. He presses the buttons and argues that if Leo can ride this thing upward, it might also be the only way they have out. The elevator arrives with a cheerful chime, and that tiny sign of hope is enough to make the whole group rush for it at once. The first elevator rush jams everyone inside, then a red overload warning and a cold speaker message turn their hope into instant panic over who has to get left behind. Gao Yan stays outside, drags a few people back out, and forces one disciple to give up his spot by promising there will be a next trip. The doors shut on the first group, but nobody inside presses the real controls, so the elevator just sits there and their relief collapses into trapped animal panic. Gao Yan opens it again, and the same disciples tumble back out sweating and ashamed, suddenly very sure they do not want to be the test group anymore. This time Gao Yan leads the smaller leftover group inside, because he has finally noticed the real panel with floor numbers and a cloud-shaped destination button. He presses the cloud icon, and the elevator finally starts rising, throwing the first-time riders off balance as the car climbs out of the building. Fear gives way to stunned wonder when the glass walls reveal the whole compound glowing below them, from workshops and warehouses to the lit houses scattered under the night sky. Outside again, the attackers notice the moving elevator shaft and realize Leo's bizarre home has one more impossible defense they still do not understand. They hack at the shaft, stomp the roof, and even gather 30 men to batter it together, but every blow bounces back and only injures the intruders. That is enough for part of the Ouyang clan to stop chasing glory and decide this fortress is not worth dying for, especially with Leo, Cat, and stronger seniors tied to it. While the raid pounds on his store, Leo is already elsewhere outside the boundary, standing over Death Sword Sect scouts whose bodies are collapsing into black, swollen mutations. The system warns him that the general store is under attack and offers an emergency purge, but Leo cannot trigger it from out here and has to ask the question that suddenly matters most. The system's answer chills him. The store is indestructible only while it stays level 9 or lower, so pushing it to level 10 could strip away the fortress safety he has been relying on. Cursing the system, Leo kicks off to race back toward the store, now with a new reason to guard his upgrades carefully. Even his spit finishes the dying scout, and the corruption he leaves behind starts poisoning the soil and nearby plants, quietly spreading north through the forest. Meanwhile, the retreating Ouyang agents run west along the road past Wu Bai's house, convinced getting away from the raid is the smart choice. In the dark they stumble over something large on the ground, grumble about logs and debris, and decide it will be safer to fly the rest of the way. The moment they lift off, thorny vines whip down from the rooftop and seize all 30 by the legs before they can even understand what found them. Then they look down and finally see the predator below them, because Cat is waiting in the dark with glowing red eyes and a hungry little voice. In the dark outside Leo's store, Cat exploded out of hiding and yanked 30 Ouyang clansmen to the ground with fresh thorn vines. The trapped agents dropped all pretense and answered with a desperate storm of fire techniques. Cat moved even faster than their spells, dragged 10 men into her grasp, and used them as living shields against their own attack. The fire barrage blew those men apart, and Cat happily breathed in the smell of roasted flesh like it was a feast. The survivors tried hacking the thorn vines off their legs, only to learn ordinary swords could not cut them. Cat answered that struggle by crushing their legs, and the thorns dug deeper to inject something into their blood. Inside the building, The noise finally broke the other infiltrators' focus, and the hidden teams realized the mission had collapsed. The Death Sword sect agents pulled back in formation, while the factory cultists scattered in every direction toward their fallback point. Before they could get far, Leo dropped onto the rooftop and strode into the front yard like the real threat had just arrived. Checking his minimap, Leo saw Cat had already eaten 10 of his targets and muttered in annoyance that she was stealing his prey again. So Leo snapped his fingers and let the system collect compensation from the 90 intruders all at once. The survivors vanished on the spot, and a flood of lifespan rewards rolled in, leaving Leo pleased but still not fully satisfied. As he counted the rough total, Leo drifted into uneasy self-talk and had to reassure himself that all this killing still counted as self-defense. His lifespan climbed past 129,000 years, enough for new construction, but the earlier warning about future vulnerability still kept him on edge. Leo started thinking bigger, wondering if he needed an allied sect to protect his growing territory before stronger enemies like Tang Xian or Yi Tianxia came for him. Once he checked back on Cat, she was still methodically eating the dead and tossing aside everything that was not meat or blood. With the yard secure, Leo finally turned to the store and noticed a strange new airlock section behind the open front door. The glass doors and shutters opened for him automatically, and Leo stepped into the cool building expecting to find the disciples downstairs. But the first floor was empty, so Leo followed their scent upstairs to figure out where everyone had gone. On the second floor he found 13 frightened disciples crowded in front of the elevator, stunned that Leo had walked in so easily. When they asked about the attackers outside, Leo answered bluntly that 10 became cat food and the rest were ash. That brutal summary was enough to make the disciples cheer in sheer relief, until Leo realized several people were still missing. A disciple finally admitted that Gao Yan and the others had used the elevator artifact to leave, even though Wu Bai had warned them not to go out at night. Leo held back his anger, called the elevator instead, and decided to bring the idiots down before the rooftop platform got them killed. Meanwhile, on the hidden upper platform, Gao Yan and his friends crawled out into brutal wind and realized they were stranded in the sky among giant statues. They hid behind the huge wolf statue for shelter, still too rattled to understand what this place even was. Once they got their bearings, they started gawking at the rotating portal ring and the bizarre labels on the statues instead of remembering the attack below. One disciple even wandered up to the round cat-faced monster statue and read its ridiculous title aloud like it was some prophecy. That touch woke something up, and the wolf statue's eyes shifted as a scorpion tail obelisk briefly glowed red behind them. Before anything worse happened, the elevator came back up and Leo stormed out to drag the intruders right back down. While herding them into the elevator, Leo quietly marked Gao Yan's group as employees, tightening his control over them at the same time. The statues kept watching in silence, and the round cat creature looked almost amused now that Leo was here. A strange Munya sound made Leo turn back, and for a second he suspected the cat statue's face had changed. He chose not to test it, sent the disciples down first, and avoided touching them directly in case his own power killed them by accident. Then Leo skipped the elevator entirely, and casually jumped off the platform because fall damage simply did not matter to him. After he left, the statue's eyes shifted again, and the cat-faced creature quietly giggled to itself. Once the disciples were back inside, Leo went right back to work and picked a broad stretch of land east of the houses for construction. He opened the build menu, skipped the cheap road options, and chose concrete without hesitation. A 10-meter-wide concrete road appeared between the store and the fields, giving his muddy domain its first clean walking path. That was only the warm-up, because Leo was really here to spend big on an employee apartment. He spent hours surveying the eastern side of the domain, counting steps and planning exactly where the building should sit. At last he confirmed a spot 5 meters from the third house and raised the apartment facing south for better sunlight. What rose up first was a miserable 2-story slum motel so ugly that even Leo just stared at it in disbelief. He checked the building menu, saw the brutal upgrade cost, and nearly wanted to tear the whole thing back down. Even so, Leo paid the price and pushed the apartment all the way to level 8, splitting the upgrades between quality and room size. The building turned into a much cleaner 4-story apartment with 40 rooms, barred windows, and materials that finally looked livable. Inside, Leo found the rooms were bigger than the outside suggested, which meant the system was cheating space again. Then he checked the bathroom, found only a primitive squat toilet, and immediately gave up on trying to civilize that problem tonight. The rest of the room inspection was no better, with only 2 power outlets and no heating or air conditioning for winter. There was nothing else to fix for now, so Leo called it a night and decided the disciples could move in tomorrow. At the same hour in Magpie City, Yi Tianxia finally slipped back to the tavern after his failed mission and headed for Prince Yanzhu's floor. 2 soul transformation vice generals in red and green artifact armor blocked him at once and warned that the prince was resting. Yi Tianxia kept his temper down, but when they pressed him, he let just enough slip to say the negotiation failed, the scouts died, and Tang Xian ran for the capital. That answer shocked them badly enough that the green general grabbed him for more, but Yi Tianxia coldly refused to say another word until morning. He sat downstairs to meditate in silence, forcing the prince's camp to come to him instead. Upstairs, the Red General entered Yenju's room and reported the wipeout while the prince lay in bed with his 4 vice-generals turned nightly wives behind a curtain. Yenju instantly grasped the implication and asked the only question that mattered now: had they just run into another quasi-immortal? He did not wait for a good answer, threw on his robes, and went downstairs himself to hear the failure directly from Yitianxia. Down at the tavern table, the prince sat across from Yitianxia, accepted a cup of wine, and turned the whole room tense with his calm fury. Then Yenju smashed the table with one strike and demanded everything at once: the mine, the stones, Florida Man, Tang Xian, and the destruction of the unit. Under that pressure, Yitianxia finally began explaining that they had run into a 6th-stage plant monster, and then spent hours recounting the disaster. At the same time in Cauliflower City, Tang Xian reached the Imperial Palace in one piece, only for another quasi-immortal to casually appear behind him. Tang Xian immediately recognized Situnantian, and their reunion turned into cold needling over influence, old rank, and who still had the Emperor's ear. Situnantian kept poking at him all the way to the throne room, even joking about Tang Xian's son and the decline of his clan, while Tang Xian endured it in silence. When they reached the throne room, the doors were already open, and the Emperor was waiting alone at 3 a.m. as if he had expected both of them. At 4 a.m. in the Imperial Palace, Yan Xiang hears Tang Xian's report and grimly accepts that Florida Man may be an emerging celestial being. Situnantian pushes to contact their ancestors, but Yan Xiang refuses because Leo has stayed under mortal world limits and broken no taboo. When Situnantian brings up the dead junior cultivators, Tang Xian cuts in and insists Leo only killed in self-defense after the third prince's men provoked his pet. Tang Xian quietly takes Leo's side because he sees him as fair, friendly, and too dangerous to provoke if the court wants to avoid disaster. Situnantian sees through Tang Xian's stance and secretly burns a hidden communication talisman under his sleeve to alert his ancestors anyway. Asked for a plan, Tang Xian urges the Emperor to legalize Leo's essence stones, visit him respectfully, and secure a trade alliance built on his rare lifespan goods. Situnantian answers with the opposite idea and recommends calling the Heavenly Court army to arrest Leo for staying in the mortal world at all. Tang Xian explodes at that suggestion, warning that a heavenly descent would kill ordinary people and purge cultivators just from the pressure alone. Yan Xiang backs Tang Xian and admits he has no desire to face immortal pressure in his kingdom again. Still bitter, Situnantian sneers that celestials who hide in mortal realms are failed scum running from stronger peers. Tang Xian dryly points out that by that logic, the untalented loser in the room is Situnantian, and the old man is left speechless. Humiliated and unable to win the argument, Situnantian stomps off and vanishes from the palace. With the troublemaker gone, Yan Xiang double-checks whether celestials truly can transform food and stones through domain laws. Tang Xian confirms it, and explains that true celestials wield domain laws and even turn their dantions into pocket universes to survive immortal realms. Satisfied, Yan Xiang decides to stop digging into Magpie City, call Yenju back, and prepare for the Mystic Realm expedition in 2 days. At 6 a.m. in Leo's domain, Gao Yan wakes up aching on the hard floor and decides he absolutely needs to build a bed. He steps out curious about exploring more, only to run into a sleepless Leo dragging himself toward bed. Leo tells Gao Yan to move everyone into the new home he built overnight before they do anything else. Gao Yan is honestly moved that Leo fought off intruders and still built them housing by dawn. Before Gao Yan can run off, Leo throws him toothbrushes, toothpaste, and soap and bluntly orders the whole group to wash because they stink. The strange modern toiletries leave Gao Yan baffled, since his world uses herbs or qi instead of this stuff. Seeing that blank look, Leo gives an exasperated hands-on demo and warns him to brush gently instead of scraping his teeth raw. Convinced only half the lesson landed, Leo gives up, tells them to pick any room in the new building, and finally goes to sleep. Later that morning, one disciple mistakes mint toothpaste for a snack, swallows an entire tube, and ends up doubled over with a brutal stomach ache. Wu Bai heals the idiot and scolds him for eating strange things without asking, but the cure does not save him from weeks of constipation. By late afternoon, Leo wakes up and immediately finds dried vomit and abandoned hygiene supplies on the store floor. Instead of blowing up, Leo blames himself for forgetting a public trash bin and calmly cleans the whole mess. Once the store is clean, Leo steps outside to investigate, and is startled by how massive the farmland has become. A second later he remembers he upgraded the farms to level 8, paid to move them, and expanded each plot from 10 by 10 to 30 by 30. He sees the crops are thriving, with the chili and tomato harvest already filling the granary, and heads toward the tomato field to inspect it up close. The tomato field turns out to be a freezing nightmare of 5-meter plants and basketball-sized blue tomatoes coated in frost. Remembering why he spread the farms apart, Leo grabs one icy tomato and carries it to the alchemy workshop for testing. At the workshop, he finds Gao Yan, Wu Bai, and the other disciples gathered like students around the active alchemy station. Leo ignores the audience, stops the tea-making mannequin after another doubled pinnacle-grade batch, and notes that even one quantity upgrade has already boosted production hard. He starts research on the new tomato, hoping this one is finally the Yin counterpart he needs instead of more Fireline stock. The result confirms an Arctic Ian tomato and unlocks a Ian ice dan recipe that needs a Ian catalyst, and water essence. That sends Leo straight to his ingredient storage, where he checks the granaries and the locked fridge full of Fenrir parts for something that can replace a proper Ian catalyst. He suddenly remembers the maimed invaders in the north, and realizes their corrupted blood might have turned into usable Ian liquid by now. Leo blasts north in a single leap and reaches the former Death Sword sect campsite in under a minute. The camp has turned into a corrupted black zone with dead trees, immortal grass, chi mist, and 20 fully mutated corpses rotting where they fell. Without much hesitation, Leo grabs 3 of the giant bodies and hauls them back first, planning to return for the rest later. Back in the domain, he hangs the first corpse behind the junkyard and starts butchering it apart with his fingernails. The cut spills black blood, purple fat, swollen black muscle, and writhing internal parasites, and Leo collects the blood in buckets for alchemy. Out of bad habit, he licks the blood from his fingers, immediately learns it tastes like rotten pork, and keeps going anyway. When giant black centipede-like worms slide out with the gore, Leo picks them off one by one before anyone else has to see them. He dumps the parasites into the recycling center's acid pool, where they dissolve screaming and even turn into spirit stones. The ugly cleanup drags on through the entire day until Leo is still processing the last bodies under a dark sky. Resigned to another all-nighter, Leo carries the 19th bucket of black blood into a new locked fridge in the granary. Cat is already waiting there drooling, shamelessly begging for a share of the blood Leo just stored. Leo flatly refuses and reminds her those buckets are alchemy materials, not snacks. Cat storms out in a sulk and suddenly dashes north, which makes Leo realize she is probably heading for the last corpse. He chases after her but arrives just in time to see Cat steal the final wet corpse and start eating it in front of him. Cat goes even further by grabbing the bucket, sipping black blood like tea, and chewing the giant parasites just to spite him. Leo warns that those worms are loaded with eggs and could eat her alive from the inside, but Cat only acts smug and unbothered. Instead of backing down, Cat claims a mysterious voice has been giving her revelations ever since Leo created the flying island. She proudly announces that she plans to face heavenly tribulation tomorrow morning and become a proper 7th-stage monster. When Cat attributes it all to something called Great Cathalhu, Leo does not buy the story at all but quietly decides to inspect the portal himself. At the Mystic Realm portal, nothing looks different on the surface, yet the strange cattered octopus-like statue is still singing a voice that only Cat can hear. After giving up on collecting Maureen fluid, Leo pours what he has into the first alchemy workshop and switches the mannequin from making tea to forging an ice dan. The workshop starts automatically with a 3-hour timer, and icy purple chi immediately begins leaking from the cauldron. The new cold clashes with the blazing heat from Leo's other pill workshop, and the whole platform starts breeding thick clouds and rain beneath the island. Wu Bai spots the strange weather first and stares up uneasily at the rain clouds forming under the island. His curiosity wins, so Wu Bai hurries over and asks Leo what kind of pills could cause a scene like this. When Leo casually says he is making an ice dan, Wu Bai is stunned that a man can openly create both yin and yang pills. That reveal leaves Wu Bai trembling with excitement, because in his world yin is dangerous for men and Leo should not be this balanced. Leo changes the subject and asks Wu Bai to explain what a Mystic Realm expedition actually is. Wu Bai lights up and explains that every 3 months each sex portal opens for a limited trip into dangerous resource-rich realms, where 10 people per gate race for treasure and survival. Leo sums it up as lunatics fighting to enter a death trap, and Wu Bai can only admit that yes, that is basically true. Leo asks whether Wu Bai will be joining his own sex expedition, and the old alchemist admits he already missed the meetings and lost his seat. Instead of commenting, Leo silently beckons him deeper into the store. At the elevator, Leo puts on his hazmat suit before bringing Wu Bai inside the strange glass lift. The elevator shoots them upward, and even Wu Bai loses his composure at the bizarre ride. When the doors open on the platform, Wu Bai is hit by the full sight of Leo's enlarged Mystic Realm portal and its looming guardian statues. Leo tells him this is his own portal and that he plans to activate it tomorrow. Wu Bai barely dares to hope for an invitation, and Leo finally offers him one of the 3 slots. The old alchemist explodes into a ridiculous, tearful celebration so intense that Leo can only stand there and watch. After burning himself out, Wu Bai clutches his chest and wheezes like he just survived a mortal battle. Leo tosses him a canteen of Pinnacle Rejuvenate tea, and after one greedy drink Wu Bai visibly turns from a frail old man into a stronger bearded man in his 50s. Leo checks again and realizes Wu Bai's lifespan has already soared far beyond what it was before. When Leo asks why, Wu Bai shamelessly admits he keeps the best pills for himself and lies to customers about the batch results. Leo calls him despicable with complete sincerity, then immediately praises the trick like he has discovered a fellow businessman. Leo asks if longevity pills cause the jump, but Wu Bai says those need years to make and an absurdly rare monster heart. That answer gives Leo a bad feeling about how long true longevity pills might trap one of his workshops, but he forces himself back to the main plan. Leo tells Wu Bai the portal only fits 3 people, so the old man gets 1 slot and must choose a disciple for the last seat by tomorrow morning. Wu Bai accepts at once and, in his excitement, literally leaps off the platform to rush home and prepare. Left alone, Leo can only wonder if Wu Bai is naturally hysterical, or just catching his own Florida madness. As the expedition season approaches, other factions are making their own preparations too. Back at his pavilion, Tang Xian drops into a chair looking worn out after everything that has happened. His son Tang Ting contacts him by telepathy and asks whether he will come home to join this season's forest-type expedition. Tang Xian refuses, tells Tang Ting to split the clan seats between clan children, sect disciples, and elders, and leaves the work to the next generation. After the call ends, Tang Xian rubs his temples and bitterly admits that provoking Leo has left them in serious trouble. At the Sixth Element sect, 5 chosen disciples gather before their own portal to hear final orders. The elder names Jin Yong captain, recognizing that the former Leo customer is now the strongest alchemist among the disciples. Jin Yong's rise is no joke now, because Leo's poison grain pills pushed him into golden core and made him a hot prospect among the elders. The elder warns them this trip is no picnic and bluntly reminds Jin Yong that even favor from Tang Ting will not save him from getting killed inside. After sending Wu Bai off, Leo checks the clothing store and walks into a shocking sea of glittering evening dresses. The tattered weaving mannequin keeps calmly sewing with a storm of tiny needle arms as if 200 dresses are perfectly normal. Leo picks up one dress and learns it is absurdly overpowered, made from supreme skin and nearly impossible to damage. The system even mocks him for touching the dress, which is enough to make Leo bury his face in his hand. Deciding this store needs a saner project, Leo buys a pair of soft beach shorts online and hands them to the mannequin as the new model. The mannequin studies the shorts, accepts the change without complaint, and the store immediately begins researching a better version. When Leo checks the clothing store menu, he realizes the real problem is not labor but quality, space, and security before his female customers return. The more he plans upgrades, the more Leo realizes his current underlings are too weak and he badly needs a truly strong subordinate. Elsewhere, Gao Yan suddenly sneezes in the middle of Wu Bai's survival lecture for the trip. Wu Bai teases him for getting sick like an amateur cultivator, but Gao Yan calmly reveals the real reason he feels different. Gao Yan shows off Leo's gifted spirit stone and says it is helping him control new elements like fire and water already. He goes further and says the island inspired him to try cultivating every element together, including an unknown wind or storm chi he sensed there. Stunned, Wu Bai grabs Gao Yan's wrist to inspect him and finds a ridiculous mix of 7 elemental chi staying in balance. In that instant, Wu Bai realizes his disciple might be a once-in-a-generation monster genius, and nearly laughs himself mad with delight. He immediately starts hyping Gao Yan as a future supreme alchemist, and drills him again on how to survive inside the mystic realm. When Gao Yan says he would catch a weaker beast on sight, Wu Bai bonks him and snaps that only monsters like Leo can tame one safely. The next morning, Leo and Wu Bai tell the remaining disciples to keep working hard while the 3 of them leave the domain for at least 2 weeks. The disciples quickly guess this means an expedition, and several of them glare at Gao Yan for being the one chosen behind closed doors. Leo kills the jealousy fast by promising everyone 1 spirit stone for every day they do their jobs properly while he is gone. With the crowd pacified, Leo leads Wu Bai and Gao Yan into the elevator and up to the portal platform. At the top, Leo makes one last check while Wu Bai and Gao Yan arrive almost empty-handed except for their storage rings. Once everyone is ready, Leo activates the Mystic Realm portal and the huge ring finally opens. A rare system panel appears for Leo alone, naming the destination Planet Rabbit Trent A3 and tying the trip to a Rabbit Trent King and a dangerous mushroom forest. The panel also warns that the gate will close for 35 days, which makes this far more than a quick scouting trip. Before Leo moves, the opening vortex kicks up such strong wind that Gao Yan drops to his knees on the platform. Wu Bai grabs his disciple by the collar and hauls him through the portal first, too eager to hesitate. Leo follows after one last glance at the 4 statues, because for some reason they seem to be laughing at him. The moment Leo disappears into the new world, the round cat statue behind him lets out another eerie little cry. Leo steps through the portal with Gao Yan and Wu Bai and finds a dense tropical jungle packed with mangroves, giant trees, and a clear river. The jungle air hits Gao Yan and Wu Bai like poison, so Gao Yan drops into meditation and Wu Bai throws up a flame dome to filter the overwhelming wood essence. Leo jokes that the air feels fresh, and Wu Bai, still busy protecting Gao Yan from the overloaded wood essence, asks to stay behind and guard the portal while Leo explores. When Leo casually says the portal will stay open for 34 days, Wu Bai is stunned because Mystic Realm gates normally close in under 2 weeks. Leo decides there is no rush and starts by setting up camp, marching straight to an enormous barbed palm tree. Ignoring the thorns, Leo rips the massive palm out of the ground with one arm and leaves Wu Bai staring in disbelief. Then Leo throws the uprooted tree straight back through the portal like a javelin, nearly clipping Wu Bai on the way. Leo keeps uprooting aloe-like plants, weeds, and anything else nearby, treating the whole jungle entrance like a harvest pile. As Wu Bai watches closely, he realizes Leo's touch is changing ordinary plants into blackened treasures, and he finally understands the power behind Leo's goods. Thrilled, Wu Bai decides following Leo was the right move and quietly dreams about monopolizing everything his old associates missed. Leo spends the entire day clearing the area and throwing resources through the portal until the jungle edge turns into a rough campsite. That night, the dense wood essence pushes Gao Yan into a breakthrough as green aura and faint rainbow light erupt around him. 6 kinds of chi gather in Gao Yan's body, and he steps into the golden core stage right in the middle of the camp. Wu Bai beams with pride at how far his disciple has come in less than a month, and Gao Yan gives credit to both his mentor and Leo. Once Gao Yan is safe, both cultivators settle into meditation and tune out the constant whoosh of more logs and plants flying past them. Leo finishes an elevated resting area, lights a campfire, and finally scans the dark jungle around him for anything watching back. His infrared vision picks out hundreds of hidden lifeforms, and the most tempting are a dozen lion-sized chickens perched high in the mangroves. The sight makes Leo hungry, and he immediately decides he wants these monsters for dinner and maybe for livestock later. Leo blitzes behind the flock and gets a closer look at what they really are: earth cockatrices with 4 legs, 3 snake tails, and petrifying red eyes. The cockatrices try to turn him to stone on sight, and Leo briefly feels the old petrification before his body shrugs it off. Remembering worse mutation pain from his old world, Leo sheds the stone-like layer and lets his red eyes flare as the petrification stops working. He grabs 2 cockatrices by the neck and mutates them by hand, letting them thrash uselessly until their feathers fall and they die in seconds. Satisfied they are edible, Leo drags the 2 carcasses back to camp and orders Wu Bai to cook them while he keeps hunting. Wu Bai recognizes the monsters as 6th-stage earth cockatrices, but Leo only cares about whether they can become good chicken. Leo jumps back to the flock and offers a brutal choice: surrender for the livestock pen or die immediately. The enraged flock attacks instead, and 5 seconds later the whole swarm drops from the tree as featherless corpses. As Leo gathers the dead birds, one slips into the river and his contamination begins spreading through the water. Leo reaches into the river to retrieve the lost cockatrice, and something clamps down on his arm from below. Instead of panicking, Leo lights up with childlike excitement when he sees the attacker is a giant black caiman. The oversized horned caiman tries to drag him under and barrel roll his arm off, but the only thing that breaks is its own teeth. Leo regrets that the contaminated river means he probably cannot keep the caiman alive, then strips and dives in after it anyway. Underwater, Leo waits for his contamination to work, but the caiman does not die and instead seems to grow stronger. The mutated caiman follows up with invisible water bullets and a horn-driven electric blast that reminds Leo of the lightning monsters from his old world. That unpleasant reminder ends the game, and Leo rockets through the river at full speed to smash the caiman out of the water. He grabs the flying caiman in midair and one punch tears a hole straight through its chest, splitting the body apart. The momentum carries Leo kilometers away, giving him a quick aerial view of the realm's major landmarks: a pyramid, a pagoda city, a giant river, and bizarre spike-like mountains. After landing in the jungle, Leo immediately goes to recover the caiman meat instead of letting good food go to waste. Colorful snakes latch onto his legs as he walks, but Leo barely notices and keeps blackening the jungle around him with every step. At the carcass, a hard red orb drops from the wound, and Leo picks it up to have Wu Bai identify it later. Leo leaps back toward camp with the caiman body and overshoots, so he yells for Wu Bai to catch what he is throwing down. When the carcass slams down, Wu Bai inspects the orb and realizes in shock that it is a 9th-stage monster core from a beast comparable to an immortal. Leo considers chasing the distant pyramid next, but the jungle is too full of edible beasts for him to leave yet. He chooses food over adventure, scans the area, and quickly finds more cockatrices plus a giant wasp hive close by. Since poking a wasp nest sounds more fun, Leo heads straight for the giant hive with the enthusiasm of someone about to start trouble on purpose. The moment Leo reaches the huge hive, giant wasps pour out and swarm him with legs and stingers that still cannot pierce his skin. Instead of defending himself, Leo grabs one wasp and bites its head off on the spot. The taste is awful, but the lifespan gain is real, so Leo immediately starts thinking about domesticating the queen for an endless bug farm. The attack drags on for an hour, and by the time Leo finishes one whole wasp he has wrung 500 years of lifespan out of it. When he finds and eats the wasp's red monster core too, Leo gets another 500 years and is instantly ready to do it again. But when he reaches for another, the entire swarm suddenly goes stiff, blackens, and dies from failed mutation. Leo shrugs off the mystery and starts stacking the dead wasps to haul back to camp anyway. Then the jungle behind him bursts open and a giant black tarantula lunges out to bite his neck and spit venomous liquid all over him. The spider's yellow chi feels familiar to Leo in the worst way, and his mood instantly sours when he recognizes another lightning-type threat. Leo rips the tarantula's fangs out with his bare hands, but the creature regenerates them and flees north at extreme speed. Watching it escape, Leo realizes this realm has creatures that can resist his contamination, which makes the hunt more interesting even as he starts wondering what cookbook could handle spiders and wasps. 50 cultivators land in the same strange jungle realm north of a giant pyramid, and Yan Xiang is openly relieved that Chancellor Tang's people arrived close by instead of being scattered. Tang Xian politely accepts the awkward reunion, while Yan Xiang barely hides that he values this crowd mainly because Tang Clan and 6th Element sect talent are now within reach. Yan Xiang's attention settles on Tang Tian, the absurdly youthful sect master whose beauty is so striking that even the emperor has to cough and look away. When Yen Xiang praises Tang Tian for finding another exceptional disciple, Tang Tian answers with polished flattery but clearly stays guarded. Then Yen Xiang points straight at Jin Yong, because the young disciple's poison aura is thick enough to stand out from the entire lineup. Tang Tian calls Jin Yong his core disciple, but Yen Xiang bluntly wonders if the boy is really some hidden Tang bloodline because talent like this should be impossible. Tang Tian tries to laugh it off, but Yen Xiang can already see the real reason for the man's caution. Jin Yong has a Dao spirit far too early, proof of terrifying potential. Yen Xiang leaves the exchange with a regretful smirk, already thinking how useful Jin Yong would have been if Tang Tian had not claimed him first. A moment later the realm splits into separate agendas, with Yen Xiang leading his bodyguards south to seize pyramid treasures while the two princes peel away in opposite directions. Back at the entry point, the Tang clan and Sixth Element sect play it safe and turn the portal area into a defended jungle camp. The realm's density pins down the weaker disciples, so they can only sit and cultivate while the elders do the real labor. Once the camp is stable, Tang Tian starts identifying jungle plants and fruit for useful resources while Tang Xian quietly checks the defenses himself. Satisfied that the arrays are holding, Tang Xian slips 500 meters south alone to thin out nearby monsters before they become a problem. Instead of an easy hunt, he finds 20 cockatrices feasting on a dead caiman whose swollen scales are sprouting nasty yellow mushrooms. Tang Xian stops puzzling over the fungus long enough to use his poison Dao spirit, sending a green younger-looking avatar drifting toward the flock. The cockatrices try to petrify the intruder, but the spirit bursts into poison gas and they breathe it in without even slowing down. Even as a quasi-immortal, Tang Xian refuses to fight 7-stage monsters head-on, so he hides and waits for the poison to act from safety. After the flock strips the caiman down to bones and even swallows its core, Tang Xian grimly decides he can still recover the prize by cutting one bird open later. But 5 hours later the poison does not cripple them the way it should, and the cockatrices start convulsing, slamming into trees, and losing control. The flock turns on itself in a frenzy, and that ugly behavior finally drags an old nightmare back into Tang Xian's mind. He suddenly remembers the ancient outbreak tied to sweet dream mushrooms, and the mutated caiman corpse makes terrifying sense at last. Tang Xian instantly abandons the hunt, races back to camp, and orders a full retreat before the fungus can spread to his people. That warning comes too late for another branch, because the Situ side is split between two dangerous portals and one of them opens right above the pyramid. The team above the pyramid scrambles onto flying swords just to avoid falling, and only then notices the entire structure below is drowned in yellow fungus. Worse, old broken loot from a dead bandit lies half swallowed by the fungal overgrowth near the pyramid entrance. Because the Situ cultivators are too young to recognize the danger, they descend to inspect the mushrooms and inhale the threat within minutes. Elsewhere, Leo comes back to camp dragging 20 mutated giant wasp corpses and casually dumps them in a heap like groceries. Wu Bai checks the intact cores and realizes Leo has been casually killing 7th-stage monsters that should rival quasi-immortals. Leo barely explains anything and just tells Wu Bai to throw all the corpses through the portal because he plans to eat them later. Before Wu Bai can process that insanity, Leo vanishes into the forest and comes back with even more wasps. Stuck running on habit, Wu Bai works like a machine and starts feeding corpse after corpse into the portal with his spatial ring. By the time he finishes 40 of them, Leo has already stacked 40 more, and Wu Bai finally feels like he is being bullied into unpaid labor. Still curious, Wu Bai secretly keeps one wasp leg for himself and chews on it to test what Leo sees in this madness. The taste is awful, but under the disgust Wu Bai feels a clean life force close to immortal grass, and his cultivation foundation actually strengthens. Far to the east of Leo's camp, another group arrives before a towering pagoda, and even seasoned cultivators stop to stare at how unnatural the building looks in this world. A second portal opens nearby for the Amazonian sanctuary women, and Hua Jiashan goes over at once to greet their grand elder with proper respect. That elder is Dong Fong Mei, a frail white-haired woman in a wooden wheelchair who looks near death but is still a realm above Hua Jiashan. Dong Fong Mei greets him like a junior and jokes that a bottle of rejuvenation tea from her disciple has made her look 10 years younger. The two elders quickly agree to explore the pagoda together, with one hard rule: the inexperienced young men and women are not to mingle too closely. With elders shielding the group, all 20 explorers enter the strange building together to use it as shelter and test what it is. The moment the last person steps inside, steel bars crash down and seal the entrance like a prepared cage. Han Ming and Han Hao rush the exit with their swords, but a transparent barrier throws their attacks right back at them. Hua Jiashan and Dong Fang may stay calm because they have seen this kind of realm mechanism before, and they judge it as a test rather than an execution chamber. Since no immediate danger appears, the elders order everyone to rest and cultivate inside the trap instead of wasting energy on panic. Back at Leo's camp, Wu Bai's body rebels against the wasp meat and he doubles over, nauseous, dizzy, and horrified by solid food itself. He finally vomits, losing part of that life force, but enough remains to prove Leo's bizarre food really does work. Leo comes back with more wasps, takes one look at the mess, and immediately realizes his employee tried eating the same thing raw. Instead of mocking him, Leo calmly explains that Wu Bai's stomach is too weak from living on grain pills and needs light food before any chewy meat. That common sense lesson shatters Wu Bai's old assumptions, and the alchemist starts wondering if the whole cultivation world may have been approaching food and impurity the wrong way. Wu Bai drops his pride on the spot and accepts Leo's advice as if he has finally found a new path worth studying. Seeing that obedience, Leo actually feels a little guilty and starts digging through his system store for medicine or food that could fix malnutrition fast. The prices are absurd, so Leo gives up on modern supplies and starts hunting for a local answer instead. That answer appears when Leo spots a lurking cockatrice in the distance, and instantly decides soup will solve this problem the old-fashioned way. 2 seconds later he is back with the monster by the neck, already announcing that he will cook soup for Wu Bai and Gao Yan. Wu Bai is still too stunned to object as Leo starts preparing the monster like an experienced butcher instead of a cultivator. When Leo asks for a sharp knife, Wu Bai silently hands over his treasured short sword and just hopes this day cannot get any stranger. Leo flips the fancy weapon around, gets the grip right, and cleanly butchers the cockatrice, chopping off the head, tails, and innards in one smooth sequence. When a red monster core drops from the carcass, Leo casually tosses it to Wu Bai like a snack he has gotten bored of. Leo matter-of-factly tells him the core is worth 500 years of lifespan once his stomach can handle it, because he already ate too many himself. Wu Bai is thunderstruck, but Leo keeps going and says he simply refuses to let the face of his store live shorter than future customers. Wu Bai hears pure generosity and is moved to tears, swearing with a Dao oath that he will follow Leo anywhere. While Leo cheerfully drains the meat, he notices movement in the river behind them and realizes a bigger problem is already watching the camp. To bait or distract whatever is in the water, Leo tosses the bloody innards into the river, and 2 9th-stage Caimans explode out of the surface fighting over them. Wu Bai instantly panics and scrambles toward Leo for protection, because these are the kind of monsters that should be untouchable. Leo is more annoyed than alarmed, and with one stomp he splits the river and launches both Caimans helplessly into the air. In the same casual motion, he throws Wu Bai's red sword through one skull and into the other, killing both beasts before they can even understand what happened. The Caimans crash back down dead, and Leo dives in, drags both 9th-stage corpses ashore, and leaves the river shining with rainbow blood. Then the only real casualty appears. Wu Bai's treasured sword snaps after the double kill, and Leo awkwardly admits he owes him a replacement. Wu Bai can barely hold the broken weapon as his mind spins around one impossible thought after another, especially the 2 fresh 9th-rank cores now lying right there. 10 kilometers south, a white unicorn on the far side of the river senses Leo's group and reacts as if it has found something precious. The creature circles in excitement to work itself up, silver light beginning to gather around its hooves. Then the unicorn steps onto the river itself and breaks into a full charge straight toward Leo's camp. While Leo keeps butchering monsters by hand, Wu Bai finally asks the question that has been bothering him. Why does someone this strong never use a spatial ring? Before answering, Leo suddenly vanishes, comes back carrying 2 live cockatrices, and snaps into his usual brutal workflow without missing a beat. He kills the birds, rips out their beaks, uses the beaks like knives to open them up, and plucks them as if this bizarre method is completely normal. Wu Bai pushes through his nerves and points out that storing beasts in a ring would be much faster than watching Leo run around carrying everything himself. Leo answers with a tired sigh and admits the truth. Every spatial ring in this world is too fragile for him, and he breaks them whenever he tries to use one. When Leo adds that one broken ring once exploded its contents all over his store, Wu Bai instantly turns that disaster into proof that his master's power is absurdly beyond mortal tools. Wu Bai eagerly volunteers to become Leo's personal carrier, smiling like a loyal servant, while secretly planning to peek at whatever treasures Leo keeps. That moment is cut short by a strange splashing rush from behind them, and Wu Bai turns to see a giant white unicorn charging straight at the camp. Wu Bai panics, grabs Gao Yan, and throws them both out of the way as the unicorn barrels past without even looking at them. The unicorn was never aiming for them at all. It reaches Leo, slams down in front of him, and shoves its head into his chest like an overeager pet. Instead of attacking, the beast sniffs Leo and starts licking his face, leaving Leo standing there stunned by the world's weirdest greeting. Leo calls the mythical beast a stupid donkey and asks Wu Bai what it is, while the unicorn pauses mid-lick just to stare at him. Leo also notices something important. Unlike most creatures around him, this unicorn shows no sign of mutating or dying from his radiation. Wu Bai finally answers that it is a unicorn, but he barely finishes before rushing back to Gao Yan, whose chi is now rampaging from the interrupted cultivation. Left without help, Leo looks the beast in the eye and bluntly asks what it is, and the only answer he gets back is a loud neigh. Far to the east, Hua Jiashan pushes Dong Fang Mei up the mysterious pagoda, and the old pair recognize the rising chi pressure as a classic compatibility trial. Their climb turns nostalgic as they remember the old Myriad Pagoda and how Situ Nanshan's tribulation once destroyed it while stopping a worse disaster. When they reach the 50th floor and find a giant unicorn statue, both immediately realize this trial is about to embarrass somebody. The statue reminds them of old Tang Tian's ridiculous unicorn incident, and the memory hits so hard that both elders start laughing before they can even explain it. Still laughing, they remember the absurd explanation elders gave back then. Unicorns are attracted to untouched cultivators, which is exactly why Tang Tian got pounced. Still climbing, the two old friends keep laughing and even mime the unicorn's ridiculous battle cry, smash. Back at camp an hour later, Leo finally asks the question he did not want answered. Are unicorns attracted to virgins? Wu Bai cannot help much, but Leo already knows enough, and the answer leaves him quietly insulted. Since the beast refuses to leave, Leo jumps onto its back and lays down the terms. If it wants to follow him, it obeys his orders from now on. Leo tests whether the unicorn can speak like cat, but the beast strains its throat and produces only one word in clumsy human speech, smash. After accepting the situation, Leo gives the unicorn a name of his own, Fake Taxi, or just Taxi. Leo checks what Taxi eats, and the unicorn immediately points him toward the nearby mutated plants and immortal grass like that should have been obvious. Relieved that feeding it will be easy, Leo tells Taxi to stay behind and guard Wu Bai and Gao Yan while he goes back to hunting. Leo still cannot understand Taxi's smash language, decides it is not worth spending power to learn it, and just leaves the horse to figure it out. He blasts back into the jungle at absurd speed, leaving after images as he zigzags through the trees collecting more cockatrices and snakes by hand. 10 seconds later he returns and drops a mountain of fresh kills in front of Taxi, treating the whole pile like a casual delivery. Inspired by that display, Taxi throws back its head and unleashes a thunderous scream of smash that rolls across the whole realm. Near the pyramid, Yen Xiang's group arrives, recognizes the sweet dream mushrooms and pink fog below, and immediately decides this place is too dangerous to enter. Looking through the fog, one guard spots the Situ clan cultivators already twisted into something inhuman, and Yen Xiang flatly confirms they are beyond saving and have become Jiangshi. The Emperor orders a full withdrawal toward the portal, preferring survival and cultivation time over charging into a trap they already understand. Then Taxi's war cry reaches them from the south, and the sound alone knocks most of Yen Xiang's escorts out of stable flight. Yen Xiang instantly identifies it as a male thunder unicorn's summoning cry and warns everyone to cover their ears because the voice itself harms cultivators. But 4 elderly guards stay fine, and Yen Xiang explains the absurd rule: virgins are naturally immune, and the cry is actually feeding them lightning chi. The squad recovers just in time to see a massive dust cloud moving south, and Yen Xiang refuses to chase it because adult thunder unicorns are far too dangerous to hunt. Back near Leo, the call has already worked. Thunder unicorns stampede in from all directions, blasting prey with lightning and trampling the forest into a bloody path. When Leo comes back with another load of kills, he finds Taxi calmly chatting with 3 more giant unicorns and realizes his one weird horse has somehow multiplied into 4. The newcomers spot Leo, rush him with sparkling excitement, and immediately start sniffing and licking him just like Taxi did. Leo can get only more smash noises out of Taxi, so he settles for one simple rule: bring your friends if you want, but find your own food and do not eat his people. That warning matters immediately when Gao Yan finally opens his eyes and finds an enormous unicorn face shoved almost nose to nose with him. Gao Yan shrieks and scrambles backward, and the curious unicorn chases him down just to plant a slobbery lick right on his mouth. Leo laughs at the disaster and welcomes Gao Yan to the same humiliating club of people kissed by pervert ponies first. They do not have long to process it, because the ground starts rumbling again and more unicorns keep arriving until the group is completely surrounded. Within moments nearly 100 giant unicorns are gathered at the portal, all staring at Leo with the same eager sparkling eyes. Taxi comes close again, clearly asking for something, and Leo can only guess that if they want to follow him home, he will deal with the stable later and let them choose for themselves. Instead of answering in a way anyone can understand, Taxi turns to the herd, shouts smash, and takes charge like a commander. The other 99 unicorns obey immediately and charge straight through the portal into Leo's home world, leaving only Taxi behind in the realm. Wu Bai and Gao Yan stare at Leo like he just casually tamed 109th stage mythical beasts, and Wu Bai cannot resist teasing him to just smash it. Leo wants to rush back and manage the disaster waiting at his store, but the system interrupts with a harsh warning that going home now will cancel both missions and all their rewards. Cornered by that choice, Leo gives up on returning, climbs onto Taxi again, and orders the unicorn to take him to the Rabbit Trent King so he can finish the quest fast. Taxi answers with a happy neigh and charges east toward the tall pagoda, carrying Leo deeper into the mystic realm. Watching them leave, Gao Yan burns with envy and vows that one day he will live as freely as Leo does instead of being trapped by his own weakness. Wu Bai immediately drags him back to reality, reminding him that a golden core cultivator is nowhere near enough for this place, and Gao Yan takes the scolding to heart and resumes training. After the pony stampede scares off the nearby beasts, Leo finally has a clear path and heads straight for the distant pagoda with Taxi. Because Taxi is too huge to saddle normally, Leo rides him standing up like a board, while the wild unicorn bulldozes straight through the jungle. Even with all that force, Leo is unimpressed and bluntly tells Taxi he is still too slow. Stung by the insult, Taxi pours lightning chi into his hooves, starts running in midair, and suddenly triples his speed with sonic booms behind him. Leo still is not satisfied, So he jumps off and tells Taxi to remember what real speed looks like. With one kick, Leo blasts off from the jungle floor like a cannon shot, leaves a crater behind, and the shockwave slams even Taxi backward in midair. That display breaks Taxi's pride on the spot, because among unicorns the fastest male is the alpha, and now Leo has clearly outrun him. Simple as ever, Taxi immediately accepts Leo as the new alpha and races after him instead of competing anymore. A few seconds later, Leo overshoots the destination by hundreds of kilometers, crashes headfirst into a pagoda, and smashes down into the middle of the city. Before Leo can even look around, the pagoda he broke topples over and buries him under a full avalanche of timber, metal, and stone. Taxi arrives late, finds only the debris pile, and stomps it so hard that a reverse lightning blast erupts and throws the whole area skyward. Leo comes up with the blasted rubble completely unharmed, casually holding a strange green gong he found inside the wreckage. As the debris starts falling back down, Leo casually uses the gong as an umbrella over his head. The impacts make the gong ring, and its vibration is nasty enough to scramble Taxi's balance and temporarily shut down his chi control. Leo shrugs off the weird sound, eats a bit of earwax like it is nothing, and even gets a small lifespan gain out of the moment. Once the ringing stops, Leo realizes the gong is probably a dangerous rare item, especially if it can rattle Taxi that badly. To get his bearings in the pagoda city, Leo jumps onto a rooftop and scans the sea of towers around him. When Leo lands on another pagoda roof, the building itself zaps him with a purple lightning strike, and he happily takes the free lifespan bonus. From that high vantage, Leo finally spots the giant central tower that dwarfs everything else, and Taxi points it out as their real destination. Leo decides to stop sightseeing and heads with Taxi straight for the tallest pagoda. Inside that tower, Hua Jiashan and Dong Fang Mei have already pushed up to the 100th floor, but the tower's pressure has brought them to a halt. They work out the rule of the floor: it drains physical strength and suppresses 6 common elements, so without lightning chi they cannot climb any higher. Since they cannot advance, both elders settle into meditation right there and lose track of time inside the tower. A huge crash from outside snaps them out of meditation, so they rush to the western window to see what just happened. From the window, they see a pagoda below has been destroyed, which should be nearly impossible for a normal challenger. Then they watch a reverse lightning blast throw debris into the sky, and Hua Jiashan spots Leo among it and instantly recognizes him. Hua Jiashan hurriedly tells Dong Fang Mei that the man below is the quasi-immortal Florida man who has been helping his sect and sheltering some of his disciples. A moment later, the gong's vibration reaches the tower, and both elders collapse unconscious along with the people on the lower floor. Soon after, Leo reaches the base of the tallest pagoda, and when the barred entrance opens by itself, he takes that as an invitation. Inside the first floor, Leo finds a whole crowd knocked out cold, including Sun Wan, Little Yao Chi-Chi, Han Meng, Tiger Swordsman, and other disciples. Instead of ignoring them, Leo quietly puts the unconscious cultivators on their sides and even buys soft pillows so they can breathe safely while they sleep it off. As Leo approaches the stairs, a nasty itch crawls over his skin like mold trying to grow on him, so he immediately switches to full protective gear. Taxi cannot understand why Leo would bother wearing more clothes, but Leo marches up to the second floor anyway with the horse awkwardly squeezing after him. The early floors are completely empty, and the tower's layout keeps forcing them to cross whole halls just to find the next staircase. After enough empty floors, Leo speeds up out of boredom, and Taxi instantly turns the climb into a race. They tear through the first 49 floors in minutes, barely caring about the tower's pressure, until both stop in front of a giant broken horn unicorn statue on the 50th floor. While Leo casually inspects the statue's metal base, Taxi stares at it in a trance and gets bizarrely excited by the sight. Leo mocks Taxi for acting like the statue is some kind of lover, but the joke dies when the statue's eyes suddenly move and lock onto him. Leo expects a boss fight, yet the statue simply changes posture and then implodes into a tiny floating white marble instead. Taxi clearly wants Leo to use the marble somehow, so Leo leans in for a closer look after removing his mask and helmet. The marble dissolves into gas and rushes straight into Leo's mouth and nose, giving him a nasty reminder of the worst habits from his old life. Then the real reward lands. Leo suddenly understands the language of Taxi's tribe for the first time. That breakthrough only makes Leo's life worse, because now he can finally hear how filthy Taxi's requests really are. Leo bluntly shuts Taxi down, forbids every perverted idea the horse suggests, and loses all interest in speedrunning the tower after that. So the climb slows to a walk, and only after several more hours do Leo and Taxi finally reach the 100th floor. There they find Hua Jiashan and Dong Fang Mei under another unicorn statue, and both elders are stunned to see Leo arrive with a thunder unicorn at his side. Hua Jiashan immediately warns Leo that thunder unicorns drain a victim's virgin yin or yang until they die, unless that purity is lost first. That warning hits a sore spot, so Leo awkwardly insists he can handle Taxi because he has experience, even if Hua Jiashan clearly does not buy it. Taxi bristles at Hua Jiashan's hostility, and now that Leo understands him, he has to shut down another outrageous suggestion on the spot. After that awkward exchange, Hua Jiashan finally accepts that Leo really does have the unicorn under control and offers his congratulations instead. Leo calls Taxi less a tame beast than a shameless stalker, which leaves both local cultivators too uncomfortable to even respond. Dongfang Mei introduces herself properly and thanks Leo for helping Sun Wan and her disciples, but Leo barely lingers on the greeting before looking back at the statue. The second statue reacts to Leo too, staring back for a tense beat before it begins to move in front of the horrified elders. Just like before, the statue implodes into a floating marble, and this time Leo takes it without hesitation. The marble turns to gas again, but this one hits like brutal wasabi instead of poison, leaving Leo in tears and pain for minutes. The suffering pays off when Leo unlocks a unique Thunder Wasabi farm, which can grow the exact food Thunder unicorns love most. Deciding he is done walking, Leo hops onto Taxi, orders him to carry them to the next statue or straight to the top, and the unicorn bolts off at once. Watching the pair disappear up the tower, Dongfang Mei can only call Leo an eccentric neighbor, and Hua Jiashan quietly settles on a simpler word, unique. Taxi blasts up the pagoda so fast that he and Leo reach the 150th floor in just minutes. Instead of another statue, the 150th floor holds a fountain of eerie green liquid that pulls Taxi in like a treat. When Leo checks the fountain, he realizes this is a pinnacle gradient poison potion, far better than the lesser poison brew he sold before. Leo grumbles that a poison checkpoint makes no sense in a wood-and-earth realm, but Taxi is already happily drinking it. Leo empties his canteen, samples the potion himself, and finds out the freezing poison tastes absurdly good, like apple juice. That one sip hooks him, so Leo buys a giant empty tank and starts stealing the whole fountain for the road. By the time Leo drains half a massive tank and empties the fountain, Taxi is openly sulking over the lost drink supply. Leo talks his way out of the theft by calling the poison their backup water supply for the climb, and Taxi immediately buys the logic. The plan has one flaw: without a saddle, Taxi cannot carry the tank, so Leo ends up hauling it himself. Burdened with the giant tank, Leo still pushes on and finally reaches the 200th floor with Taxi beside him. The next checkpoint is a nightmare statue, a 5-meter rabbit with 6 eyes, 4 arms, and weapons in every hand. Taxi instantly turns hostile, because thunder unicorns and rabbit trents are ancient enemies in this realm. Seeing Taxi ready to fight, Leo sets down his gear and steps forward, finally hoping for a proper warm-up. The statue wakes as Leo approaches, turning from stone to living wood and opening its mouth into a nest of attacking vines. Leo slips aside so cleanly that the first vine strike only smashes through the floor. When the rabbit trent sweeps the vines back across the room, it tears through floor tiles and only catches Leo's fading afterimage. With Leo out of sight, the rabbit trent turns on Taxi instead. Taxi fires a lightning railgun into the rabbit's chest, but the hit only chars it instead of finishing the job. Before the rabbit can counterattack, its arms and body suddenly wither and drop apart for no obvious reason. The answer is on its head. Leo is sitting there, having spat into its ear to kill it from the inside. Taxi can barely process that his lifelong nightmare enemy just died in one cheap move. Leo brushes it off by saying he knows plant monsters well because he keeps a dryad pet at home. Taxi keeps asking the wrong questions until Leo explodes and makes it clear the dryad is basically his daughter, not some romantic option. After that exhausting argument, Leo gives up on climbing for the night and camps on the floor. Elsewhere in the realm, Situ Nanchan's group finds a hidden cave treasure left behind by a dead intruder from an immortal world. The blood message warns that the Triangle building is full of 9th-rank rabbit trents, and even the forest and river are crawling with deadly beasts. To identify the corpse, a clansman uses a talisman on its forehead and pulls a scrap of memory from the remains. The memory confirms the corpse was only at the celestial physique stage, the first immortal stage, which makes the cave warning even more serious. Realizing they cannot challenge the pyramid yet, Situ Nantian orders the group to search the cave for anything else worth taking. The clansmen recover 3 locked spatial rings, and Situ Nantian is pleased to pocket treasures they can pry open later. Then one of the men strips the corpse and finds a book hidden in the dead immortal's clothes. The title Tao of Overlord hooks Situ Nantian at once, because the book claims the realm's gnosis can grant full control of that world and its chi. That promise lights up his greed, and he starts asking everyone what they know about gnosis and rabbit trents. By the next morning, the unconscious cultivators in the pagoda all wake at once, dizzy and feverish but alive. Yao Chichi wakes too, but Leo's rejuvenate tea has physically regressed her into a tiny 3-year-old body. Her appearance may be younger, but her chi has become monstrously large, beyond even a peak golden core cultivator's volume. Chi-Chi calls Sunwan Mama, and Sunwan immediately gathers the little girl into her arms to check if she is hurt. Sunwan can only admit she does not know what knocked them out, and Han Meng and the other survivors still look badly drained. A voice transmission from Dongfang Mei checks on the group, and Sunwan reports that everyone survived and Chi-Chi may have gained a huge blessing. Dongfang Mei answers with one clear priority: keep protecting Chi-Chi, because she has become their hope. Han Meng receives his own order from Hua Jiashan: spend 5 days cultivating here, then start harvesting the realm's herbs and fruits. Then Hua Jiashan drops the real warning: Florida man already entered this pagoda with a thunder unicorn, and if anything weird happens again, they must run. Once Han Meng realizes Leo used his own portal to get here, he is too late to stop himself from cursing Wu Bai for secretly cozying up to that monster first. Back on the climb, Leo pockets the Rabbit Trent's 9th rank core for future longevity pills and keeps moving with Taxi. The next stretch is simple stair climbing, so Leo and Taxi race through 50 more floors looking for the next fight. On the 250th floor, 2 Rabbit Trents block the stairs and attack the moment they appear. This time Leo does not even let Taxi join in and charges them himself, hungry for lifespan and monster cores. A minute later the floor is clear, and Leo is holding 2 fresh cores like quick loot. To test the reward, Leo eats 1 core on the spot and gains 2,000 years of lifespan. He decides the second core might be more valuable as pill material, so the climb resumes. On the very next floor, the pattern escalates again with 3 Rabbit Trents guarding the stairs. Leo is delighted by the increasing wave design and starts wondering how he is supposed to haul all these cores home. At the same time, Situnantian leaves the mountains with the Tao of Overlord in hand and keeps studying it as his group heads east toward the pagoda town. As he reads aloud, Situnantian explains that Enosis is a celestial being's condensed Tao and karma, and stealing one is a shortcut to immortal power. The book goes even further by describing fate crystals born with heaven-chosen prodigies, the true protagonists of an era. Instead of fearing those chosen people, Situnantian starts dreaming about stealing their fate and taking absolute power for himself. So obsessed is he that he flies right past Wu Bai and Gao Yan's old campsite without caring that anyone is there. After 6 more hours of flying, Situnantian finally reaches the pagoda town and ignores the smaller towers to focus on the tallest one. He declares this tower must belong to the Rabbit Trent King, the likely overlord of the entire mystic realm. His followers hesitate, but Situnantian snaps back that his talismans can kill weak immortals and this is their chance to stop bowing to the imperial family. Before the argument can settle, a violent boom from the top of the pagoda blows the clouds apart. Using his sight, Situnantian glimpses an unmeasurable old man with a thunder unicorn facing a terrifying beast aura near the top floor. The beast's pressure feels like an immortal stage monster, and Situnantian instantly decides to rush up and steal the aftermath. But the moment he reaches the top, a deafening gong shreds his control of chi and sends him plummeting from the sky. On the 400th floor itself, Leo is not worried about the boss at all. He is furious that the Rabbit Trent King just broke his favorite gong. The 10-meter Rabbit Trent King starts a villain's speech from its throne, promising to turn Leo and his treasures into fertilizer. Leo cuts the speech off with a casual long-range punch that blows a huge hole straight through the king's chest. Before the stunned king can understand what happened, Leo stomps up, jumps onto its lap, and rips the red orb core right off its body. Just like that, Leo skips the boss fight entirely and takes the quest reward before the Rabbit Trent King can even finish dying. After butchering the Rabbit Trent King on the pagoda's top floor, Leo digs through the corpse for the quest's Gnosis, and comes up with nothing but its 10th grade monster core. When the quest text says he has to absorb the Gnosis, Leo decides the simplest answer is to eat the entire monster himself. Leo starts chewing through the corpse piece by piece, and Taxi watches in stunned respect before trying to sneak some for himself. Leo warns Taxi away from the mutated blood, claiming that toxic mess is his food, not the horses. With the corpse claimed by Leo, Taxi turns to a strange mountain of glowing white dragon fruits beside a white leaf plant that keeps dropping fresh ones every minute. Leo has no idea what the fruit is, so he gives Taxi permission to try it. Taxi gulps down a white dragon fruit, loves the taste for 1 second, and then collapses from the flood of yang qi hitting his body too hard. Leo mocks the flattened horse, pats his belly, and picks up a fruit to test it himself. Before eating, Leo pauses for a grim little toast to dead humanity, immortality, and himself. The fruit barely affects Leo at all, and the system only rewards him with 1 extra year of lifespan. Taxi realizes the fruit is still worth huge cultivation gains for him, so he stubbornly crawls back to finish the half he spat out. Outside the pagoda, Situnantian finally flies back to see who interfered with him and spots a thunder unicorn and an old man with a rainbow aura inside. The unknown old man bothers him, but after remembering reports about Magpie City's rumored immortal, Situnantian decides not to start a direct fight yet. Instead, Situnantian orders his followers to stay back and prepares to steal the Gnosis and Fate Crystal the moment Leo uncovers them. An hour passes, and Leo is still eating while Taxi naps after stuffing himself. Another hour later, Leo finally gets too full, pats his bloated stomach, and decides to nap right there instead of finishing the corpse. Watching from outside, Situnantian nearly loses his patience but still refuses to risk charging into an unknown immortal's tower. 4 hours later, Leo wakes up refreshed and cheerfully announces that he is going right back to eating. That line almost breaks Situnantian on the spot, because he now realizes this idiot might waste his whole day waiting for the monster to be eaten bite by bite. As the hours drag on, each disgusting bite of Rabbit Trent flesh gives Leo 10 more years of lifespan, so he happily keeps going despite the taste. Leo finally reaches the monster's wood-like intestines, nearly gags at the moldy seaweed taste, and realizes the thing must have lived on those useless fruits. Even so, the 10-year lifespan gains keep popping up, so Leo forces himself onward and vows to finish the whole thing by tomorrow. Outside, Situnantion is so furious he almost attacks early, until a red orb suddenly rolls out of Leo's pocket and catches his eye. When the monster core touches the white dragon fruits, the fruits vanish into it, turning the strange orb into a much more interesting clue. As Situnantion creeps closer, he spots a glassy eyeball hidden behind the fruit plant, and the thing stares back at him before dropping off and vanishing into the fruit pile. The eyeball does not match the fate crystal in his book, but Situnantion wants it anyway, and that greed locks in his plan to steal from Leo. 3 full days pass with Leo and Taxi eating non-stop on the top floor while Situnantion's group keeps stalking the windows for one clean opening. At the end of it all, Leo has eaten everything in sight and still has not cleared the quest, which leaves him openly furious at the mystery of this missing Gnosis. Taxi suggests the ugly possibility that they may have killed the wrong king, and that idea wrecks Leo's mood even further. Trying to think, Leo absent-mindedly grabs another white dragon fruit and reaches for the monster core, only to realize his pocket is suddenly too light. Leo asks Taxi to help search, and the unicorn quickly senses the missing core buried under the fruit pile. When Leo digs down to the bottom, he finds not just the core but a tiny white eyeball creature clinging to it and half absorbing it. Leo reaches to snatch the little thief, but the eyeball creature bolts for the plant with the core in its grip. The fruit plant splits open like a mouth and swallows both the eyeball creature and Leo's monster core. That is the opening Situnantion wanted, so he crashes through the window, touches the plant, and steals the whole thing into his spatial ring. Situnantion smirks for one heartbeat and turns to smoke to escape, but Taxi reacts first with a yellow lightning blast that catches him mid-flight. Leo instantly appears in front of the petrified thief and reaches for his neck, but Situnantion slips away again before Leo can close his hand. A kilometer away, Situnantion reappears in the sky and panics hard enough to order his subordinates to attack with everything they have. 9 cultivators answer by raising giant ogre-like Dao avatars and linking huge red talismans into a fire array around the pagoda. Taxi answers with his own 100-meter silver horse-faced giant and a yellow dome barrier that blocks the incoming beams. The clash melts the remaining dragon fruits, and that loss makes Taxi furious enough to smash the talisman array apart with one punch. The broken formation backfires on all 9 attackers, and they spit blood and drop from the sky with heavy internal injuries. By then Leo has already kicked off after Situnantion himself, crossing a kilometer in an instant, and nearly grabbing him again. Situnantion teleports again, and Leo tracks his new position by sight and aura instead of giving up the chase. To change direction in the air, Leo folds his legs and detonates forward with raw force, burning through his pants and skin before his body heals on the spot. Even with those brutal rocket kicks, Leo is still a little slower than Situnantion's teleporting escape and has to keep relaunching from the ground. Realizing speed alone is not enough, Leo checks his massive lifespan total and opens the system shop for a modern weapon in mid-chase. He buys a cheap CZ handgun, then immediately tests a crazier idea by asking the system if it can be upgraded like one of his store items. The answer is yes, so Leo burns an absurd amount of lifespan to force the pistol all the way to level 8 and buys upgraded ammunition too. He loads the new magazine by instinct and launches after Situnantion again, gambling 80,000 years of life on one shot. Leo catches up so fast that he overshoots past Situnantion, and for one stretched instant both men move through the sky at terrifying near-light combat speed. Situnantion tries to buy space by summoning a flying fish Dao avatar and slashing Leo with a water crescent, but it only ruins the hazmat suit. Leo flips in the air, levels the upgraded pistol at Situnantion's chest, and fires. Leo thinks the recoil feels underwhelming for the lifespan cost, but the level 8 bullet is so fast it punches straight through Situnantion's back and chest a moment later. The hit feels like a quasi-immortal's full-force strike, wrecking Situnantion's chest and dropping his speed hard. Looking for somewhere to hide, Situnantion glances down and realizes he is above the pyramid and the sweet dream mushroom death zone, which traps him with nowhere safe to dive. Then desperation hands him one last chance when he spots one of his clan's portals hanging in the sky above the pyramid. Believing heaven has saved him, Situnantion burns his last strength to sprint for the portal before Leo can close in again. Leo refuses to let the thief escape with his stolen quest item, so he steadies the pistol and aims not for the man but for the hand loaded with rings. The second bullet lands perfectly and blows Situnantion's left hand apart, scattering fingers and storage rings through the air. Among the falling rings is the one holding the stolen dragon fruit plant, which means Leo has finally forced Situnantion to choose between escape and loot. Situnantion turns in panic to recover his hand and rings, but Leo flips the gun up to his head and makes the choice for him. Faced with death, Situnantion abandons the rings and dives through the portal alone, fleeing with his life but not his stolen prize. After Situnantion slips away, Leo rockets through the sky cursing the overpriced handgun that was weaker than his own fists. He lands far away, casually leaves a massive crater with one kick, and launches himself straight back toward the pyramid where the fingers and rings fell. At the foot of the pyramid, Leo immediately recognizes the pink forest around it as sweet dream mushrooms. The moment he steps on one, the mushrooms burst with spores, so Leo covers his face and gives up on using the gun. Instead, he buys spray paint and a lighter on the spot and starts torching the whole mushroom patch. The small mushrooms shrivel, but the larger ones split apart, flee the flames, and regrow by feeding on the surrounding chi. Once Leo sees how stubborn they are, he drenches himself in gasoline and sets his own body on fire. As a walking inferno, he finds the spores and pink fog can no longer touch him. The trick finally works, so Leo calms down enough to light a cigar from his own flames and vow that Situn Nantion dies next time. While scanning the burning forest, he spots mushrooms writhing over all 5 fallen fingers and rings like greedy scavengers. Leo grabs the first mushroom ball barehanded, burns through its regeneration, and rips out one spatial ring. He leaves the finger behind to be eaten and sterilizes the ring against his burning skin before moving to the next one. A few minutes later, all 5 rings are finally back in Leo's hands, and he starts thinking about where to check their contents safely. Then curiosity wins, and Leo decides that since he is already here, he might as well loot the pyramid too. After searching around the structure for an hour, Leo finally finds a small shrine and a narrow cell gate halfway up the pyramid. He tears the gate open, sees the cramped little hole beyond it, and instantly decides he would rather dismantle the pyramid than crawl. So Leo starts yanking out huge stone blocks one by one, dropping them onto the mushroom field below like giant Jenga pieces. He keeps working from the apex downward, stripping away hundreds of stone blocks, but the pyramid still refuses to reveal any inner room. While Leo is wrecking the pyramid, Taxi finally follows his scent there, galloping through the sky on crackling lightning. Taxi finds Leo and proudly blurts out his usual smug smash, which only makes Leo realize with fresh irritation that the horse can fly and he cannot. Taxi offers to teach Leo his flying trick, but only for an outrageous price in immortal grass meals. Leo grumbles through the bargaining but eventually agrees to feed Taxi 100 blades of immortal grass per meal for 100 years. But when Taxi notices the sweet dream mushrooms below, his bravado vanishes and he panics straight up into the sky. Leo calls him dramatic, but Taxi refuses to come back down, so Leo shrugs and keeps tearing the pyramid apart alone. After roughly 2,000 blocks, Leo finally breaks into a hollow space and decides the best route inside is still just removing more of the building. He drops into the dark hall and lets his eyes adjust from red to green, revealing stone pillars and a giant golden rabbit-trent pharaoh statue on a throne. Thinking he may have found the real target behind his unfinished quest, Leo charges in and smashes the statue's face with one punch. The hit tells him immediately that he just destroyed a hollow statue, not a living enemy. Inside the shell, he finds a hidden hoard of rabbit-faced golden coins glowing with strange energy. He bites one out of curiosity, hates the bitter chocolate taste at first, and only changes his tune when the system gives him 5 extra years of lifespan. Now thrilled, Leo instantly starts calling the coins the best food ever and shouts up to Taxi with a sweeter offer. He promises another 100 blades of immortal grass if Taxi will teach him not just flight, but also how to use chi and open the spatial rings. Taxi hears him from above, wants the easy payment, but still hesitates to come anywhere near the mushroom zone. Leo takes the vague answer as good enough, leaps 3 kilometers straight up, and lands on Taxi's back in one smooth jump. Only then does the absurd image hit him. He is modestly covered by careful framing and simple cloth, still on fire, and sitting on a very unimpressed horse. Leo puts out the flames by shedding and regenerating skin, and the last stubborn fire leaves an embarrassing scorch mark on Taxi's back. Taxi snaps him out of his stupid laughter, and Leo hurriedly buys a fresh set of clothes before the lesson can start. Once dressed, Leo asks to learn chi first, and Taxi thinks he must be joking. When Leo flatly admits he cannot use chi or essence at all, Taxi is completely shaken because nothing about Leo's monstrous strength should work that way. After staring into his eyes and realizing Leo is somehow serious, Taxi finally accepts the role of teacher. Taxi explains meditation in his own smash-filled way, and somehow Leo follows every bit of it. Leo sits cross-legged on Taxi's back and starts meditating in the sky while Taxi holds still for him. Within minutes, Leo finds the current inside his body and pushes a tiny bit of power to one fingertip. The result is a disaster. One spark turns into fire, water, stone, metal growth, branches, and poison all exploding out of the same finger at once. Leo realizes his cancer cells are acting like feral idiots, so he tries ordering them to use only the impure chi they want to dump anyway. That choice backfires instantly when Leo's aura turns black and filthy fluid starts pouring from every pore and opening in his body. Taxi panics so hard that he bucks Leo clean off his back and kicks him away midair. Leo crashes down unharmed, but the detox keeps draining fluid and body mass while the smell coming off him is absolutely foul. Desperate for water, he points a finger into his own mouth and accidentally blasts himself with a high-pressure jet instead. He forces the pressure down and keeps drinking anyway, flushing his body until dirty streams start pouring back out of him from all directions. When he finally stops, he is dizzy from overdoing it, but the black runoff has also started poisoning the mushrooms around him to death. The toxic sweat keeps spreading through the roots until a full square kilometer of mushroom forest dies in seconds. Leo can only stare at the damage, mutter that even his sweat is too toxic for zombie mushrooms, and strip off the filthy clothes. After toweling off and changing again, he goes right back to practice with one strict order. Only one cell gets to act, and it must use the tiniest amount possible. This time, A single obedient cell sends out a faint controlled strand of chi from Leo's finger at last. Amused that this tiny thread is what cultivators work so hard for, Leo immediately turns the experiment toward one of Situ Nanshan's rings. As soon as the chi enters, Leo senses a watery maze inside the ring, and his abnormal chi starts devouring that stored energy instead of merely touching it. The stolen water chi feeds back into his body, and Leo briefly wonders if this is how cultivation is supposed to work at all. When the ring's energy is emptied, it clicks open, and Leo finally senses the huge storage space and all the objects inside. For Leo, opening a spatial ring for the first time feels like a ridiculous but genuine breakthrough. Leo finally figures out how to probe a spatial ring with chi, and the first thing he pulls out is a red flying sword. When Leo grips the sword, it drains his energy for a second, then hovers in front of him like it is ready to be ridden. He excitedly treats it like a surfboard, steps on, and starts learning its controls through his chi. His first launch goes badly, and the flying sword slams him straight into a giant dead sweet dream mushroom. Embarrassed but practical, Leo gives up on practice for now and goes back to the real job, looting the pyramid with his new storage trick. Back in the treasure room, he learns the ring only works once he actively powers it, not by forcing items in with raw chi. The moment the ring activates, it neatly swallows the test items, and Leo realizes he has finally mastered spatial ring storage. Now that he knows the trick, he sweeps the whole broken gold statue and its coins into storage in one shot. Feeling stupid for not learning this earlier, Leo heads deeper into the pyramid and finds 3 sarcophagi waiting in the next room. He kicks open the first coffin, and a nasty burst of old poison gas and dust erupts into his face. Inside is a dog-faced mummy buried under grave goods, and Leo calmly stores the loot and even the corpse for later. As he robs the tomb, Leo briefly regrets not bringing Cat along, because this kind of chaos would have been perfect for her. Back in Leo's domain, the unicorns are still trapped at the portal platform and too scared of the guardian statues to move. The Catopus statue greets them in its weird way, and the frightened unicorns immediately try to run back through the portal. When some unicorns try to flee by air, the fisherman's statue snags them with an invisible net and drags them right back. One stronger male unicorn fires lightning in protest, and the platform answers with a red barrier prison and a far scarier warning. The black-winged devil statue rises, orders them to stay until their master returns, and the entire herd instantly submits in terror. Once the herd is contained, the Catopus statue casually clears the leftover corpses from the platform while the trapped unicorns watch from inside the red barrier. On the ground, Leo's mannequins are still digging because he never told them to stop, and their pawn project has turned into a huge mine pit. The dumped monster corpses rain into that pit, and Cat comes sprinting in the second she hears food has arrived. The mannequins quickly make room for her, and Cat lands at the bottom of the pit like she has struck treasure. One bite tells Cat everything she needs to know, and she happily starts devouring the giant wasps as a perfect snack. Back in the pyramid, Leo finishes looting the other coffins without waking anything dangerous. Among the loot, one clear orb gives off such a strange pull that Leo starts nuzzling it like he is under a spell. The trance gets worse, and Leo bites into the orb and eats the whole thing because it somehow tastes irresistible. When the last bite is gone, Leo snaps out of it with no idea what he just did. A system alert abruptly congratulates him for clearing the secondary objective, which only makes the whole thing feel stranger. Checking the mission list, Leo sees both finding and absorbing the entity fate crystal are already marked complete. He guesses the orb must have been the crystal, but with no answer from the silent system, Leo can only stew in frustration. He vents by kicking the carved pyramid wall hard enough to blow a fresh opening to the outside. The clean air clears Leo's head, and he remembers the real unfinished prize is still the Rabbit Trent King's Gnosis and the missing 10th rank core. Leo drains the remaining sealed rings from Situ Nantian and finally finds the tiny ring that holds the stolen dragon fruit plant. The plant comes out alive and still hungry, immediately trying to pull in Leo's chi. Leo pins the plant down and slices it open to recover the 10th rank core he knows is hidden inside. Instead of a simple core, Leo finds a tiny one-eyed tentacle creature alive inside the split plant and trying to wriggle free. The tiny creature starts crying for its life, and Leo's usual ruthlessness crumbles on the spot. Leo offers a deal instead of killing it. If the creature can help him with the Rabbit Trent King's Gnosis, he will spare it and return the core. After a long, pained hesitation, the monster points back at the dragon fruit plant itself. Leo realizes the plant may be the Gnosis, and the creature's grief makes it clear this is more like its mother than a mere object. Thinking it through, Leo decides Gnosis probably means a Tao tied to the plant, so he may only need to understand it instead of destroying it. That answer thrills the little creature, and it immediately hops onto Leo's shoulder as if they are partners now. The little creature can even feed on Leo's cancer cells and radiation without harm, quietly growing stronger from the contact. Leo laughs at himself for sparing crying monsters while still treating crying chickens as dinner, then gets back to testing the plant. He converts spirit stones into essence stones and confirms the plant eagerly feeds on them. Fueled by that energy, the plant quickly ripens and drops fresh dragon fruits right in front of him. Even after seeing the fruit darken in his hand, Leo still cannot grasp what Tao he is supposed to learn from this thing. The little creature offers a clearer hint by merging into the plant and turning its own tentacle into small guiding vines. Its message is simple: stop staring at the fruit and actually plant the tree somewhere proper. Leo accepts that plan, puts on fresh rubber gloves, stores the new fruits away, and carries the plant outside. One look at the poison mushroom wasteland tells Leo this ground is too filthy, and the little creature agrees when he asks about heading west instead. Leo jumps onto Taxi's back with the plant and orders a full-speed trip to the west. Taxi grins at the frightened little creature like a creep, and Leo immediately smacks him and lectures him for bullying an elder. Even after Taxi protests that the eyeball is older than him, Leo still scolds the unicorn and makes him fly properly. 10 minutes later, they streak past Wu Bai and Gao Yan's campsite on the way to the western mountain zone. They reach the west at last, where absurdly thin mountains rise with little pavilions and courtyards built on every peak. Leo picks a mountaintop courtyard full of existing plants, and the little creature eagerly approves it as a proper place to grow the tree. The little creature gets so excited it runs for the nearby pond, only to slam into the frozen surface instead of diving in. Ignoring the pond for now, Leo digs into the rocky peak, plants the dragon fruit tree there, and decides this mountain will be his place to study its Tao. As Leo enjoyed his haul, the wider expedition fell apart, and many cultivators fled back to their own world after deciding this mystic realm was simply too dangerous. Yan Xiang swallowed his humiliation and went home first, leaving his followers to choose between greed and survival. Situ Nantian made it home barely alive, with a hole through his body and mangled organs, and only his clan's treasures and rare pills kept him from dying. Stuck in seclusion for months of healing and years of recovery, Situ Nantian seethed over losing his shot at the Rabbit Trent King's Gnosis and the chance to become immortal. He refused to let Leo go, and in secret he reached out to an ancestor who had already ascended. At the Death Sword sect, the return gate sat hidden in a damp underground dungeon of mud bricks and oxblood paint, sealed behind heavy protection arrays. At the Death Sword sect, weary disciples and elders stumbled back through the portal carrying rare desert materials, exhausted but thrilled by what they managed to bring home. One elder even collapsed smiling, delighted that his spatial ring held dozens of golden sand bananas rich enough to be turned into earth element cultivation pills. Watching from his wheelchair at the edge of the chamber, Ouyang Feng could only stew in envy because he still had not recovered enough to even walk. The room's cold silence said the rest. Everyone knew Qing Yuanji had really been killed over Ouyang Feng's disgrace, and now the sect quietly took it out on him. Realizing how low his standing had sunk, Ouyang Feng grudgingly asked the deacon to wheel him away. Before he could leave, the sect master Hua Guanhai called Ouyang Feng back for a look of his own. Expecting punishment for his clan's mess, Ouyang Feng lowered his head and greeted the sect master with forced respect. The sect master examined Ouyang Feng with a sight technique and identified poison essence in his head disrupting his balance. For the first time, Ouyang Feng heard a real explanation for his condition and immediately begged to know if the sect master could cure it. The sect master said he recognized the poison style, likely tied to the Tang clan, then casually crushed Ouyang Feng's hope by admitting he could not treat it. After the sect master dismissed him, Ouyang Feng was wheeled out even more humiliated than before. With Ouyang Feng gone, Hua Guanhai publicly shut down the desert expedition and forbade anyone from entering that realm again. Once the others dispersed, Hua Guanhai quietly revealed the order was only for show and began tampering with the portal himself. He changed the portal from yellow to pink and opened it onto a dense mushroom forest loaded with wood and earth chi, only to grimace at the sight of sweet dream mushrooms. Wanting a blood element realm instead, he swapped the portal again and never noticed a tiny mushroom spore hitchhiking onto his boot. Back on West Mountain, Leo searched the old tea pavilion for loot and found plenty of glossy clay pots and outdated tools. One crooked teapot told him the place held old handmade work, but not the answer he actually wanted. So Leo went back to the strange white dragon fruit plant and tried to reason out what kind of Tao or Gnosis the Rabbit Trent King had really left behind. The eyeball had already finished digesting the rank 10 core and simply looked bigger, which made Leo joke that maybe all it wanted was to grow fatter. Instead of answering with words, the eyeball plucked a fresh fruit and handed it to Leo like it had a lesson to teach. When the eyeball pointed from the fruit to Leo's body, he realized it wanted him to mutate the fruit with his own power. Leo played along, darkened the fruit, and the eyeball immediately urged him to bury it. The two of them dug together, planted the mutated fruit, and the eyeball kept impatiently comparing the buried seed to the original white plant. Leo still did not get it, and the eyeball got so frustrated with his cluelessness that it practically poked his face to make him think harder. Then a black sprout broke through the soil, forcing Leo to finally stop theorizing and actually look at what was happening. Watching the mutation unfold, Leo suddenly connected it to his own power and blurted out the answer. This Gnosis was about mutation and evolution. The eyeball eagerly confirmed it, making Leo realize the Rabbit Trent King's knowledge had been sitting right beside him all along, just in a form he still did not know how to fully claim. Leo tried meditating like a proper cultivator, but after 10 pointless minutes he gave up on pretending he knew what he was doing. Since enlightenment was not happening, he decided to brute force the problem by growing more mutated plants and eating the results. He planted another blackened fruit and used his saliva as fertilizer, figuring that if his body caused the mutation, more of him might speed it up. The trick worked too well. One plant copied the original black sprout, but another twisted into a roper-like tree covered in long black tentacles. The tentacle plant crossed Leo's disgust threshold, so he ripped it out before it could spread any farther. Then he did the only thing that made sense to him and started eating the severed tentacles, discovering they tasted like wasabi and nuts. The sharp wasabi kick hit hard enough to make him pause and savor it, which only made him regret killing the plant too soon. He even tried replanting the roots and apologizing with more spit, but the dead plant stayed dead. Undeterred, he rolled the dice again with more mutated fruit, chasing a better result like a man hooked on a new kind of gacha. This time he hit something huge. A black bamboo shot 20 meters into the air and began spreading at terrifying speed. Within moments the bamboo multiplied into hundreds of stalks and swallowed half the mountaintop before the soil finally ran out of fuel. Delighted, Leo swept the entire bamboo forest into a spatial ring and immediately decided to keep gambling. As he planted another fruit, Leo started singing nonsense at full volume, and the mountain's little ecosystem slowly got dragged into it with him. The hovering companion picked up the tune first, the eyeball bobbed along, the white plant waved, and before long Leo had become the center of a very strange sing-along. While Leo kept singing, the new black plants ripened and quietly learned to reproduce on their own. The ripened black fruits dropped, burrowed into the soil by themselves, and spread away from the mother plants onto the mountain cliffs without Leo ever noticing. His little concert triggered another change too, as white glittering particles spilled from Leo's rainbow aura and sank into the surrounding trees. Instead of turning black, the touched trees mutated into white versions of themselves and sent threads of white chi back toward Leo like a silent offering. Behind Leo, those chi threads slowly condensed into a growing droplet of essence while he kept right on singing. 4 hours later, Leo finally stopped the experiment, rewarded the eyeball and the white plant with a bit of spit, and called the day a success. The hovering companion peeled off in search of water, but the eyeball and nearby plants looked openly disappointed that the music was over. Seeing that sad reaction, Leo decided to solve it with technology and browsed the shop for a high-end phone with a huge battery. He bought an AI phone 69 for 1,000 years of lifespan, and the sleek, transparent device instantly hit him with a wave of homesickness. That mood vanished the moment he remembered there was no internet here, and he immediately called himself an idiot for wasting the purchase. Then the store offered an upgrade, and Leo went all in, ordering the phone pushed to the highest level possible. The level 8 phone came back looking the same, but now it had infinite battery and an honest-to-God Wi-Fi signal in the middle of a dead mountain. When he checked the source, the signal was named Ring, and Leo immediately turned to the alien ring fused to his finger. Probing the ring, which she did not reveal a storage space this time, only something stranger, an embryo-like living presence hidden inside it. At that exact moment, the condensed droplet of light essence finished forming and shot straight into the ring. A wisp of light immediately emerged, circled Leo, passed through the nearby plants and eyeball, and then sank into his chest before he could make sense of it. Leo searched inside himself for the thing he had just absorbed, but even his own strange body found nothing. Behind Leo, a transparent toddler that looked exactly like a young Leo quietly manifested and perched on top of his head, completely unnoticed by Leo himself. The eyeball desperately tried to point out the new ghost, but the transparent toddler only giggled and shushed it. Leo completely missed the warning and assumed the eyeball was just begging for more music. So Leo queued up a 10-hour song on the new phone for the plants, left it by the white dragon fruit tree, and headed to the pavilion to sleep while the hidden toddler followed him, gathering more light around him. After resting for the night, Leo returns to the mountain courtyard and stops short when he sees the white dragon fruit plant has turned into a massive tree. The sight makes him grin, and he starts sweeping up the black dragon fruits into his spatial rings for his future farm. Once the easy harvest is done, Leo sits under the white tree with a fresh white fruit and broods over the same problem as before. He still has not claimed the gnosis. While Leo puzzles over what he is missing, an invisible toddler spirit perched on his head starts giggling and eyeing the fallen fruits. The greedy spirit touches a ripe fruit, and it crumbles into dust as its life force is sucked away. One fruit after another disappears until Leo finally notices that half the pile around him is just gone. He senses something invisible is stealing from him, so he turns to the eyeball monster on the tree for a clue. Following the creature's pointing tentacle, Leo watches another fruit shrivel into dust right in front of him. Now that he knows the thief is hovering nearby, Leo hurriedly packs away every white fruit he can and leaves just one as bait by his feet. The spirit takes the bait and reaches for the last fruit, but Leo slams his hand down and misses when it passes straight through the ghostly body. The spirit panics and flees behind the tree, but the eyeball monster finally makes its move. With a wet plop, the eyeball monster pins the invisible thief to the ground, and Leo immediately tells it to hold the little thing there. Leo coats his fingers in chi threads from his cancer cells and tries to grab the spirit directly, but the threads only sink into it and get eaten. Annoyed that the thief is draining him, Leo changes tactics and force feeds it raw essence until it risks bursting from overeating. Unable to beat the stronger monster, the newborn Tao spirit breaks apart and dives into Leo through his hand instead. Leo feels the cold flow racing toward his heart, so he sends his cancer cells inside himself to intercept it and drive it down to his solar plexus. The energy condenses into a tiny glowing ball and resists him, but Leo brutally digs into his own chest and rips the grain-sized orb out by force. Before he can decide whether the little orb is the Gnosis, it shoots free and disappears straight into his alien ring. Leo answers the ring's latest trick with brute force, pumping essence into it in an attempt to flush the thing back out. Instead of coughing up the orb, the ring absorbs the power, strengthens itself, and sinks into Leo's flesh until it vanishes completely. That makes no sense at all, and after raging for a moment, Leo gives up, lies down under the tree, and drifts off in the cold mountain air. Once Leo is asleep, the spirit slips back out of his finger in a new form, a naughty little boy with Leo's 6-year-old face. Still acting like a brat, the boy's spirit digs a tiny hole, fills it with water, and pushes Leo's fingers into it to set up a wet-the-bed prank. The spirit sits on Leo's chest to wait for the dream to work, but Leo suddenly opens his eyes and catches him staring back. When the boy tries to flee, Leo grabs him by the neck with essence-coated fingers and proves he can finally see and touch him. Leo smugly explains that dream tricks do not work on him because he has spent years messing around in his own dream world and can break any nightmare on command. Before the standoff can go any further, black thunderclouds boil over the mountaintop, and the air turns ugly fast. One glance is enough for Leo to recognize the same deadly black lightning that nearly killed him on Earth, and he knows he has almost no time to escape. Leo throws the spirit away and gets ready to bolt, but the little ghost refuses to be abandoned and clings to his chest instead. With no time left, the spirit gives up on pranks and merges into Leo for real, flooding his mind with the Rabbit Trent King's long memory. The vision shows him the rise and fall of countless living things and finally, how a mutated green dragon fruit line became the white dragon fruit plant that the Rabbit Trent King claimed. Still half drunk on that knowledge, Leo moves on instinct and stuffs both the white tree and the eyeball monster into his spatial ring. A black lightning bolt slams down a heartbeat later, and Leo narrowly sidesteps it at the last possible instant. The tribulation strike tears the whole peak apart and bores a colossal shaft deep into the earth. Thrown off the collapsing peak, Leo snaps out of his daze and uses falling debris as stepping stones to escape the destruction. After 5 desperate jumps, he catches another mountain cliff and yells at the heavens, furious that he has no idea what crime earned that punishment. The answer is somehow nothing at all, because the black clouds disperse immediately and leave him hanging there in disbelief. While he stares down at the glowing red point far below in the crater, a chiming sound rings out behind him. A new figure appears at his back, Leo's first DAO avatar, a wooden mannequin with his own face. Then the system finally spells it out and Leo realizes the impossible just happened. He really did digest the Rabbit Trent King's Gnosis. The completed quest rewards pour in next, and Leo learns he has gained land expansion tickets, a lucky draw, and outright ownership of planet Rabbit Trent A3. When the system mentions a permanent portal, Leo immediately imagines turning the new world into a tourist spot, a secret farm, and a source of dangerous plants. That dream cools fast when the next warnings say he cannot build there until the store hits level 10, the beasts are not his subordinates, and the system will not harvest their lifespan for him. The level 10 requirement especially worries him because it would remove his store's automatic protection and leave everything exposed to attack. Even so, Leo starts building a plan around the 100 unicorns in his domain and around a much more dangerous idea, arming trusted people with guns. He pulls out the modified handgun that worked on Situnantian and starts wondering whether Gao Yan or Wu Bai could use weapons like this too. The idea excites him so much that his old instincts flare up, and for a moment he seriously considers making his own upgraded shotgun before admitting the lifespan cost would be insane. He settles on the obvious capitalist answer instead, leave the slow work of taming that whole planet to employees later and move on to the reward menu. The free land tickets are just assets on the menu, but the lucky draw catches his eye, so he opens it to see what categories the system offers. Most of the categories are ordinary things he can already buy, so he scrolls until the interesting late-game choices appear: unique domain buildings, Gnosis, fate crystals, and authority. The locked options tease an even bigger future, but the system tells him Gnosis and the other high-end draws are gated behind much higher building levels. Since unique domain building is the only special reward he can actually use now, Leo picks it and accepts the pull with zero faith in his own luck. The system swaps to a gacha machine full of gray, blue, purple, and gold balls, and Leo instantly understands exactly how badly this could go. He prays for a golden ball, gets a gray one instead, and can only grimly admit that his luck is still terrible. The gray ball opens into a building unlock anyway, and Leo freezes when he reads the reward name, Gunsmith Workshop. The icon looks like a shabby junkyard shack, but the description says it can eventually evolve into a full factory for modern firearms, which hits Leo right in the heart. That excitement crashes the moment he sees the upgrade cost, because each level would demand 10,000 years of lifespan. Leo quickly does the math, realizes fully building it could cost 190,000 years, and nearly sweats himself sick. When he checks his current lifespan, the total is still over 140,000 years, and he remembers he has been feeding constantly enough to refill a huge chunk of it. With the mission settled and the rewards processed, Leo drops from the cliff and heads east through the forest toward Wu Bai's camp to start hauling home everything he can carry. As he travels, he also plans to practice flying sword movement, though a nagging feeling tells him he has forgotten something important. Back at the Pagoda Tower, Hua Jiashan and Dong Fang Mei are still cultivating through their injuries and squeezing every bit of qi they can from the place. On the lower levels, Sun Huan's group grows restless and starts climbing too, following the path the stronger pair already opened. Yao Qiqi handles the tower absurdly well, skipping along like she is weightless while the adults have to grind their way upward behind her. When Sun Huan warns her not to run, Yao Qiqi just cheerfully announces that she is already near the bottleneck of the nascent soul stage. That one cheerful line hits Han Meng and Tiger Swordsman like a humiliation hammer, because they have trained for decades and are still at the same level as the little girl. The men wordlessly rush ahead just to save face, and Sun Huan cannot even blame them because she had the same stunned reaction before. Watching Yao Qiqi's impossible growth, Sun Huan starts connecting the dots back to Leo and wonders if he is the real reason the girl keeps exploding upward in power. That thought turns into a reluctant admission that Sun Huan may have little left to teach this disciple except common sense, and that Yao Qiqi might need Leo more than she needs her. By the end of the climb, Sun Huan is already considering a bigger step altogether, asking to serve at Leo's store, and even bringing girls from her sanctuary to study under him. After a few days away, Leo finally got back to camp and immediately saw that something had gone very wrong around the portal site. Gao Yan was still at the portal, but his breakthrough had changed him into a bark-skinned, antlered state with glowing green eyes and dangerous lightning building around him. The horns kept firing wild bolts into the river, the trees, and even the shelter, turning the whole campsite into a hazard zone. One stray strike hit Leo in the chest, burning his shirt, but his body simply swallowed the rampaging qi and erased the damage. Gao Yan bowed over and over to apologize, but every embarrassed movement only made his horns fling more lightning toward Leo. Leo realized the lightning was only normal colorless thunder, so instead of panicking, he told Gao Yan to stop aiming at him and use those horns on the K-mans instead. Even trying to lean back did not help, and another stray bolt slammed straight into Wu Bai's shelter. Inside the wrecked shelter, Wu Bai was curled up in tears, so Leo walked over and asked who had bullied him. Wu Bai finally confessed that he was not hurt at all. He was devastated because Gao Yan had broken through, survived heavenly tribulation, and awakened a sentient Dao avatar. When Leo looked carefully, he finally noticed the transparent lightning maiden beside Gao Yan, and the sight made Wu Bai even more bitter. Wu Bai blurted out the real reason for his breakdown. He was jealous that his teenage disciple might end up with a beautiful spirit concubine before he ever touched a woman once. Leo answered that shameless confession by bonking Wu Bai with a thick branch. When Wu Bai kept whining about the future spirit wife he might never have, Leo hit him again even harder. Leo switched to a folded paper fan and smacked him a third time, furious that a man over 100 was acting like a horny 14-year-old. Flat on the ground, Wu Bai wailed that he really was a pathetic lonely virgin who had spent his whole life cultivating instead of living. That miserable speech made Leo realize just how isolated male cultivators like Wu Bai had probably lived for decades. Then Leo remembered he still had a smartphone from his old world, and a very bad but very effective idea hit him. He pulled out the phone, found that the internet somehow still worked, and opened an adult video site without questioning the miracle too hard. Instead of comforting Wu Bai normally, Leo sat him down and started a crash course on how to use a smartphone and the internet. 2 hours later, the old alchemist had learned fast and was staring at the phone like an overexcited child, completely hooked on the images. Leo gave him the phone for good, only to be answered by loud moans from whatever video Wu Bai had already started watching. With Wu Bai finally distracted inside the shelter, Leo left him alone and headed back to Gao Yan's still unstable lightning problem. Gao Yan's horns reminded Leo of Taxi, and that was when he realized the missing unicorn was nowhere around camp. He leapt 5 kilometers into the sky to search Bai, but even from up there the perverted horse was gone. Back on the ground, Leo remembered this whole realm was now part of his domain, so he tried using the shop map instead of his eyes. The map unfolded the entire realm as one jellyfish-shaped supercontinent, finally giving Leo a clear view of where everyone was. He spotted allies gathered at the pagoda town, hostile red dots roaming the land, and Taxi all the way out in the middle of the North Sea. Since Taxi might understand lightning better, Leo decided to go drag him back and told Gao Yan to stay put until he returned with a new mentor. To travel fast, Leo summoned Situ Nanshan's red flying sword and stepped onto it like a casual mount. Gao Yan recognized the sword as the limited Ferrari F50 model, and Leo was immediately entertained by how close that sounded to Ferrari. That joke sent Leo into a smug lesson about GTA, and he started explaining carjacking like it was sacred wisdom from another world. Gao Yan somehow took the lesson seriously and started wondering if mastering GTA meant he could steal an enemy's flying sword in battle. To complete the lesson, Leo pulled out a pistol and said real GTA required enough strength and the right tool. Leo simply handed the pistol over, trusting Gao Yan with the weapon far more than he trusted Wu Bai. Gao Yan had no idea what a gun even was, so Leo had to start from the very beginning. Realizing words were not enough, Leo bought another handgun and cheap rubber bullets so he could teach safely without wasting the priceless live rounds. He drilled Gao Yan on trigger discipline, the safety, the gun's parts, and the basic rule of not sweeping the muzzle across friends by accident. After 2 hours of practice, Gao Yan was already nailing distant targets with absurd ease. Leo realized Gao Yan's weird accuracy came from the Dao avatar overlapping her hands with his, like a supernatural aimbot. Even better, when Gao Yan focused on the gun, the lightning stopped exploding wildly from his antlers and started flowing into his hands instead. That control came with one problem. Gao Yan complained he still could not push his lightning chi into the rubber bullets themselves. Leo explained that rubber was an insulator, but that answer only made him curious about what would happen if he tried his own chi instead. The moment Leo pulled the trigger, the humble pistol turned into a rainbow railgun and erased everything in a 50-kilometer line. Leo and Gao Yan could only stare in silence at the impossible shot until loud moans from Wu Bai's shelter ruined the moment. The test also cracked Leo's chi pistol, so he casually spent more lifespan to upgrade it to level 2 and restore it. Trying to save face, Leo told Gao Yan to use metal, earth, or wood chi instead of lightning, and definitely not fire unless he wanted to overheat the gun too. Then Leo casually revealed the live rounds could probably kill immortals, and Gao Yan nearly stopped breathing from the shock of holding such an artifact. Gao Yan and his spirit both bowed in gratitude when Leo said the weapon was for protecting his friends and loved ones while Leo was away. Leo even bought Gao Yan more rubber ammo and promised to teach him maintenance later, leaving the boy looking more loyal than ever. With Gao Yan settled for the moment, Leo's thoughts jumped ahead to staffing his growing store, and even little Yao Qiqi crossed his mind as a possible harmless helper. He changed his route, deciding to visit Gao Yan's sec team first before chasing down Taxi. Before leaving, Leo warned Gao Yan to keep practicing and to use the live rounds without hesitation if a truly strong monster showed up. Leo scanned the quiet area, spotted 2 black caimans in the river, and casually decided to leave Gao Yan one last practical lesson. He picked up a boulder and hurled it through the river so hard that the water split open and the rock burned red from sheer speed. The glowing rock tore one caiman in half, and the other fled at once, which left Gao Yan staring at the aftermath in shock. Leo told Gao Yan to take care of himself and not grow into another Wu Bai, then mounted the Ferrari and launched straight up this time. As Leo shot into the sky and vanished, Gao Yan could only gape at that impossible display of raw power. Once Leo was gone, Gao Yan asked his Dao avatar if he could ever become that strong, and her answer was brutally honest, maybe in 1,000 years. She admitted that even as a born elemental spirit, she still could not see through Leo at all, which only deepened Gao Yan's awe. Meanwhile, Leo forced the flying sword downward after climbing almost too high, and by the time he corrected it he was already up in the stratosphere. For a moment he just stared out at the strange square pattern of stars and the harsh white sun, taking in how different this sky was from his old world. Looking at that alien sky, Leo could not help asking his fuse ring who had made it, who owned the alien ship, and why any of this had ever crossed into his life. Leo finally gets his flying sword headed east and speeds back toward Pagoda Town, already planning to scout Sun Wan and Yao Qiqi as future workers. While flying, Leo notices a transparent wooden mannequin with his own face following behind him as his first official Dao avatar. Leo tries talking to the mannequin like a curious idiot, but the Dao avatar just stares at him and vanishes back into his ring. Leo shrugs off the rude little spirit and starts descending toward the town anyway. When the town comes into view, Leo sees the aftermath of the earlier slaughter instead of the neat city he visited before. Because he still has no idea how to break the sword, Leo jumps off and lets it fly straight into a pagoda. The runaway sword punches through one tower, crashes through another building, and almost gets Leo blamed for a fresh collapse. Pretending none of that was his fault, Leo heads straight for the giant half-broken pagoda still smoking from the last battle. Inside, the younger disciples of the Life Sword sect and Amazonian sanctuary spot Leo and instantly switch to nervous respect. Chinyo tries to act like she barely knows him, but the whole room still greets Leo as a dangerous senior they should not offend. Leo tells the disciples to relax and runs upstairs to find the elders. On the 50th floor, Leo finds Sun Wan, Yao Qiqi, Han Hao, Han Meng, Tiger Swordsman, and the sanctuary elders gathered around a pile of white dust. Han Hao is the first to notice him and goes absurdly formal, which makes Han Meng look at his father like he has lost his mind. Yao Qiqi cuts through the stiff atmosphere by grabbing Leo's hand and bouncing excitedly as if she has found her favorite person again. Leo checks that his strange aura is not hurting her, and when Yao Qiqi is still perfectly fine, he relaxes enough to pat her head. He apologizes for the tea that regressed her body, but Yao Qiqi only thanks him for saving her life and declares that she wants to become an angel like him. Looking at the adorable child, Leo blurts out that he wishes he had a granddaughter like her, and Sun Wan instantly sees an opening. Sun Wan carefully says Yao Qiqi's talent has outgrown the sanctuary and asks whether Leo would take the girl under his wing. Leo hears it as the sanctuary dumping its responsibility on him, and his face hardens on the spot. Sun Wan panics and tries to explain that she means Yao Qiqi deserves a stronger mentor, not that they want to abandon her. Leo still refuses to decide for the child and says Yao Qiqi herself gets to choose where she belongs. Pressed by Leo's anger, Sun Wan finally admits the real problem. The sanctuary is poor enough to lack even basic cultivation supplies and grain pills. Han Hao points out that plenty of people donate to the sanctuary, which forces Sun Wan to reveal the ugly catch attached to that money. Sun Wan explains that the court and the Ouyang clan offered support only in exchange for virgin girls, so the sanctuary rejected the money outright. That answer shifts Leo's fury away from the women and toward the people trying to buy girls from them. Leo still makes them swear they have never sold any of their girls before, and the whole sanctuary side denies it without hesitation. Once Leo believes them, he abruptly offers a solution that no one expected. He wants to hire the entire sanctuary. He says his territory needs clerks, cashiers, and workers, and he is willing to move their whole sect there on salary. Then Leo sweetens it with modern worker benefits, free healing pills, and 1 essence stone a month, which nearly makes the sanctuary elders cry on the spot. The women are ready to accept immediately as long as he does not force anything immoral on them. But Sun Wan hesitates over one practical issue. If they leave their current base, they lose access to the mystic realm portal tied to it. Leo casually drops a much bigger offer, saying he owns this world and might be able to open a permanent portal instead. Before Leo can even finish explaining the danger of the place, Han Hao shoves Sun Wan aside and tries to sell the entire Life Sword sect to him too. While the adults spiral into recruitment chaos, bored little Yao Qiqi notices the ring mark on Leo's finger and pokes it. The touch wakes the hidden Dao avatar, and a young voice from the ring questions who she is and why she carries the same aura as his master. Instead of being scared, Yao Qiqi bursts out laughing at the tiny wooden face that looks like a younger Leo. Han Hao keeps pushing his luck, so Leo smacks him with a paper fan and tells him to get Hua Jishan's approval before offering up the sect. Even after the hit, Han Hao realizes Leo did not actually reject the idea, and his greed for the opportunity gets even worse. Leo admits he was planning to poach their people anyway, and says a full migration would be useful if they help fortify his territory. Han Hao celebrates way too loudly, asks about wages on the spot, and gets told to bring Hua Jishan first. Han Meng flatly says his father is insane because Hua Jishan will never casually disband the sect founded by his own ancestor. Han Hao reveals he has already been sending voice transmissions, and both sects now end up waiting for their leaders to answer Leo in person. During the pause, Sun Wan asks the obvious question at last. Who exactly are they about to work for? Leo first checks on Yao Qiqi and notices she is happily busy chatting with his hidden Dao avatar instead of being bored by the adults. With Yao Qiqi occupied, Leo tells the elders the simple truth that he is not from their planet. Han Hao immediately assumes Leo must come from some immortal realm, so Leo describes Earth instead as a place full of thick gas and giant monsters dangerous even to him. Sun Wan presses for a strength scale, and Leo casually says those monsters shrug off red lightning but still die to black lightning. That one answer detonates the room, because Sun Wan and Han Hao recognize red lightning as a tribulation tied to godhood. Sun Wan explains their old records of tribulation colors, from mortal breaking gold to god testing red, and everyone starts staring at Leo with a horrifying new theory. When Han Meng outright asks if he is a god, Leo jokes that if those kaiju count as gods, then he must be something like a creator. He makes it even worse by bragging that black lightning once killed and revived him, making red and orange tribulations sound like snacks. Han Hao desperately rephrases the question and asks if Leo comes from a deity realm, and Leo jokingly says Florida is basically the land of gods. The elders take that as confirmation and immediately drop to their knees, begging forgiveness for ever speaking to him so casually. Sun Wan is so rattled that she starts apologizing for daring to ask a god to take Yao Qiqi away. Leo tries to undo the mess by cutting his finger, and showing them he has blood like anyone else, but his transparent blood only scares them more. After that, Leo is stuck in 5 full minutes of awful silence while everyone stays face down and treats him like a king. Yao Qiqi is the only one who ignores the new divine etiquette, and she tugs on Leo's hand to complain that his Dao avatar says he bullied him. That gets everyone's attention, and Yao Qiqi bluntly relays the spirit's version of events right in front of the whole room. Leo realizes this is about the wooden mannequin spirit, admits he mistook it for some random local spirit, and agrees he owes it an apology. The moment Leo asks where the avatar is, the transparent wooden mannequin manifests in front of him so they can settle it face to face. Leo bows his head and apologizes sincerely, and for him that matters because the old version of himself would never have admitted fault. The Dao avatar softens, sits in front of him, and offers a fist instead of holding onto the grudge. Leo fist bumps him, and the spirit finally speaks clearly enough for Leo to hear him call him an idiot with no common sense. Leo accepts the criticism, asks what the newborn spirit needs to survive, and gets a completely deranged answer in return. The Dao avatar cheerfully says Leo should plant him somewhere and pee on him, and Yao Qiqi instantly explodes because he said that in front of a 6-year-old girl. After settling things with his Dao avatar, Leo turns back to the kneeling crowd, and Sun Wan eagerly asks him to explain this mysterious Dao he keeps talking about. Sun Wan presses the point by asking whether Yao Qiqi can see Leo's hidden Dao avatar, finally connecting that to the girl's habit of staring at empty space and talking to unseen things. Before Leo can answer, footsteps thunder down from upstairs as Hua Jiashan and Dong Fang Mei finally arrive to see the strange scene for themselves. Hua Jiashan freezes when he spots Leo's wooden Dao avatar, while Dong Fang Mei immediately assumes Leo may have bullied her people. Dong Fang Mei demands to know what happened, and Leo answers her suspicion with a blunt, almost insulting, "Who are you?" The moment Dongfang Mei truly looks at Leo's Dao avatar, she feels overwhelming immortal pressure and realizes this old man is absolutely not immortal. Unable to kneel from her wheelchair, Dongfang Mei bows her head instead and apologizes for failing to recognize an immortal-level figure. Leo groans that he is tired of all these grand titles and orders everyone to just call him Florida Man. With both leaders present, Leo stops playing around and tells Hua Jiashan and Dongfang Mei he wants to move their people into his domain as paid workers. Hua Jiashan asks the obvious question, and Leo answers it just as directly. Yes, he intends a full takeover of the sex people. Leo says he is not trying to seize the whole city, only useful workers, which makes his offer sound even more like a ruthless recruitment sweep. Hua Jiashan refuses at first because he cannot abandon the Life Sword sex inheritance, even if he ends up as its last member. Leo immediately reframes the deal. The sect can stay alive as a branch under him, and Hua Jiashan can still preserve its name as the one in charge. That concession shakes Hua Jiashan, so he asks one more practical question about the sect facilities and portal before he gives in. Leo says the sect can keep functioning, but he will reassign people into his own labor structure, which makes Hua Jiashan think this is still a slow death for his sect. Before Hua Jiashan can sink into despair, Leo adds the part that changes everything. He will pay wages in essence stones and leave the sect's current resources alone. Leo sweetens the buyout even further by promising Hua Jiashan personal compensation for surrendering control instead of simply robbing him. He hands Hua Jiashan a captured spatial ring as an advance and casually says he will pay 100,000 essence stones later, leaving the whole room stunned. The mood turns cold when Hua Jiashan inspects the ring and recognizes deadly Situ clan talismans and artifacts inside it. Leo cheerfully explains that he took those rings after blowing apart the hand of a thief who tried to steal his 10th grade monster core. Once they connect the clues, the entire crowd realizes Leo may have just mutilated someone from the far more terrifying Situ clan. Hua Jiashan confirms the owner by finding Situ Nanshan's personal fishing pole in the ring, which means the victim was not some nobody at all. When Hua Jiashan asks if the ring belonged to Situ Nantian, Leo's clueless joke about the name only makes the revelation even worse. Dongfang Mei and Hua Jiashan both picture the disaster clearly now. Leo has likely provoked a clan with immortal backing and may have dragged all of them into the fallout. Hua Jiashan asks outright whether Leo is recruiting them into a coming war, and Leo is genuinely confused by the question. As soon as Hua Jiashan explains the Situ clan's immortal backers may come hunting him, Leo lights up instead of panicking because he sees only future harvests. He happily promises to welcome those enemies with hospitality and hostility, which leaves the room in speechless horror. Leo barrels on with the sales pitch and casually reveals the biggest advantage yet. Once they move under him, they can use a permanent portal because this entire planet already belongs to him. That absurd claim completely overloads Hua Jiashan and Dongfang Mei, and their minds almost shut down on the spot. Leo keeps talking through wages, schedules, and benefits until the relentless pitch finally wears Hua Jiashan down. At the end of the long negotiation, Hua Jiashan gives in and only asks to keep running the Life Sword sect as a sword school, which Leo readily allows. With one sect settled, Leo turns to Dongfang Mei and offers the same deal to the Amazonian sanctuary, stressing the permanent portal and steady essence stones. Dongfang Mei is still wary because too many men have tried to use her people before, even though Leo does not feel lecherous the way they did. Just as she is about to decline, a distant scream of smash and a huge explosion interrupt the room and shake the pagoda. Everyone rushes to the windows and sees a distant aerial fight in the north, where Taxi clashes with a flying black-horned caiman in a storm of thunder and lightning. Leo wants to help, fumbles for his missing flying sword, and then remembers he left it behind somewhere else. So he grabs his spare handgun instead, deciding that if he cannot reach Taxi in time, he can at least try covering fire from here. The elders cannot understand what kind of artifact this is, while Leo calmly threads rainbow chi into the pistol and lines up an impossible shot across 200 kilometers. Even Leo doubts the range, so instead of gambling on a normal shot, he upgrades the gun to level 8 on the spot. Now trusting the upgraded weapon, Leo crams the rubber bullet full of chi and fires. At first the shot seems disappointingly quiet, and nobody except Leo can even tell whether anything happened. Then the northern sky suddenly blooms into a blinding rainbow-white sphere that opens a tiny white hole and blasts everything around it away. The elders can only shield their eyes, but Leo keeps staring straight into the light to watch what his shot really did. When the light finally fades, the horned caiman is simply gone, erased so thoroughly that only the aftermath of immortal-level destruction remains. A moment later, Taxi's unicorn body wobbles back toward the pagoda much slower than before, showing he survived the blast but took a hit. As soon as Taxi gets close, Leo bursts out laughing because the once pristine white unicorn has been charred completely black. Taxi angrily protests Leo's joke, but Leo backs off fast and switches from teasing to taking care of him. Leo turns his fingers into high-pressure water hoses and carefully sprays the soot off Taxi until the unicorn's clean white coat returns. Cleaned and happy again, Taxi nuzzles Leo affectionately, and the room finally sees what kind of man this absurd old monster really is. That display changes Dongfang Mei's mind, because a unicorn would not dote on a vile man, so she decides to trust Leo after all. She formally agrees to move the Amazonian sanctuary into Leo's domain, starting with the outer disciples, initiates, and children to build shelter first. With both groups won over, Leo happily tells everyone to return to their sex for now since they can come back through the realm whenever they want. The elders bow in visible relief now that the old portal limits no longer trap them, and Yao Chi-Chi quietly says goodbye before following Sun Wan out. Once they are gone, Leo finally exhales and admits to himself that this long day somehow ended with 2 whole factions folded into his future company. His next worry is home, because he remembers Cat is stuck back at the store with 100 unicorns and might be getting bullied. Before leaving, Leo asks Taxi to help find the flying sword he lost in town, and Taxi is baffled that Leo never learned the basic trick of marking an artifact. Taxi explains that cultivators can brand treasures with chi and essence, locking ownership and summoning them back remotely unless a stronger owner strips the mark away. Leo is genuinely impressed by the advice and thanks Taxi like he just discovered an entire missing chapter of cultivation common sense. After recovering the lost sword with Taxi's help, Leo rides back toward the original campsite. Back at camp, Gao Yan is nowhere to be seen, and the only one waiting there is Wu Bai in a shockingly wrecked condition. Wu Bai has sunken cheeks, huge dark circles, and a swollen right arm, making it painfully obvious what he has been doing with Leo's phone. When Leo asks if he had fun, Wu Bai joyfully praises the phone artifact and declares he no longer needs women anymore. Leo instantly regrets corrupting this man, and Wu Bai somehow makes it worse by proudly rambling about how many rounds a cultivator can handle. Wanting out of that nightmare conversation, Leo cuts to the real problem and asks where Gao Yan went. Wu Bai looks around, realizes Gao Yan is truly gone, and then stupidly asks Leo the same question back. That earns him a furious beating with Leo's paper fan, because this was the one answer he was supposed to have. Meanwhile, Gao Yan has already wandered deep into the forest, following the directions of his sentient lightning spirit Dao avatar. Thora leads him across the South River to a hidden cave and reveals that it once belonged to a former lightning spirit queen. She casually adds that this same queen created those lewd unicorns and horned caimans, turning the place into an even stranger ruin than expected. Then Thora promises an even bigger secret hidden below, and urges Gao Yan to hurry after her. The pair descend through the natural tunnels until the cramped cave suddenly opens into a vast underground dome. At the center of that buried chamber, Gao Yan finds a gigantic metallic saucer so unbelievable it looks like an alien spaceship. Thora flies straight into the ship, and moments later part of the saucer opens like it recognizes her, inviting Gao Yan inside to claim another artifact. Inside the alien ruin, Gao Yan steps into an airtight chamber, and the door slams shut behind him. The room starts cycling like some strange machine, sucking out air and blasting him with white fumes until he coughs. An inner door finally opens, and Thora floats there like this is normal, waving him deeper into the ship. As he follows Thora through the cramped corridor, Gao Yan studies the sealed doors, unreadable labels, and fresh moving air in this windowless place. Thora brings him to the engine room and says the real treasure is stored inside. When the door refuses to open, Thora tells Gao Yan to inject lightning chi into the green control glass so it can recognize him. The panel flashes red and rejects him outright, which already feels wrong to Thora. Thora tries to lock herself, expecting easy access, and gets denied too. A second warning locks the engine room for security, and Thora loses her temper on the spot. Trying to save face, Thora phases through the sealed door to unlock it from the other side and leaves Gao Yan waiting outside. After half an hour of waiting in the corridor, Gao Yan finally sees Thora come back out of the engine room looking completely defeated. She admits the whole place now answers to a new owner of the realm, and even she no longer has permission to open the engine room. Thora is crushed because a huge soul stone was inside, and she had wanted Gao Yan to absorb that priceless energy source. Gao Yan takes it surprisingly well and suggests they look for the realm's owner later, then asks to see where Thora's old spirit queen used to live. When Gao Yan asks about the spirit queen, Thora proudly says her queen already ascended past the immortal realm into the heaven realm. She gets so carried away bragging that she drifts straight through a wall by accident before sheepishly correcting herself. A little farther on, they reach a door marked hydroponics lab, and this one opens for them. Inside, Gao Yan finds a bizarre oxygen garden full of plants growing in glass tubes, with one giant central tube left empty and charred. Thora calls the lab her old home, but Gao Yan bluntly says the plants just look like worthless common weeds to an alchemist. Thora snaps back that these plants were never treasure ingredients at all. They were how ordinary air-breathing guests stayed alive here. Since the soul stone is lost, Thora points him toward a backup prize hidden in the overgrown lab floor. Gao Yan pulls out a white metal hilt with a broken switch, and Thora casually tells him it is a sword. Thora guesses the weapon is out of power, and urges him to feed it lightning chi to see if it can wake back up. The hilt immediately turns hungry, ripping chi out of Gao Yan so fast that even his blood seems to rush into his hand. By the time Gao Yan tears his hand free and staggers back, the weapon has drained almost everything and burned his palm raw. Thora reads the tiny display and, almost laughing, tells him that desperate charge only filled 1%. She still insists that 1% should be enough for a quick demonstration and tells him to press the broken switch hole manually. Thora starts warning him to keep both ends away from his body, but she says it won't be too late. A double green blade erupts from the hilt with a vicious hum, and one side slices across Gao Yan's arm before he can react. Gao Yan drops the weapon in shock, and the green staff blade snaps off again as fast as it appeared. Still laughing at his reaction, Thora reveals that this staff sword can kill 10th grade beasts, and even low-rank immortals. Elsewhere above Liu's camp, Wu Bai uses Gao Yan's life candle to track his missing disciple and realizes the flame is pointing south. He lands and reports the direction to Liu, then nervously begs Liu to come along because he is scared of the local beasts. Liu sighs at how useless Wu Bai is, but he still agrees and mounts Taxi to head south with him. As they fly, Liu checks his map and sees Gao Yan is only 10 kilometers away, close enough that Taxi could reach him in a minute if not for Wu Bai's slow pace. Bored on the ride, Liu idly checks and reloads his upgraded handgun while scanning the empty southern rainforest below. Staring over the land, Liu starts thinking like a businessman and wonders how to turn this whole wilderness into a tourist zone or livestock site. He tests the domain system on a whim and is stunned to find the entire continent counts as his territory. The excitement cools when every grid is locked behind one condition: he still has to activate a permanent portal first. When they finally arrive, Wu Bai points out a cave in a bald round hill, but Liu's attention goes straight to the unnatural shape of the place. Liu jumps onto the hilltop, kicks off his shoes, and tests the grass with bare skin to see whether it is alive or mutated. The moment he chews a blade and tastes plastic, Liu realizes the hill is covered in fake grass. He starts ripping up the disguised surface and exposes a metallic dome underneath. Taxi gets excited and joins in, and together they strip the entire fake cover off the buried structure while Wu Bai just watches. From above, Liu spots the split line across the dome and starts grinning because it looks exactly like a buried silo or hatch. He pounds the metal like a kid opening a mystery box and decides they are definitely going inside. Wu Bai shrugs it off as just another metal ruin, but he still leads Liu and Taxi into the cave. Right before entering, Liu checks his map again and notices two separate groups of red dots, one at his camp and another already closing in on this ruin. He almost turns back to deal with the intruders, then remembers his portal setup still is not ready and decides to ignore them unless they cause trouble. The nearby pursuers are Yanlong's second prince expedition, allied with the first prince and quietly shadowing Liu in hopes of taking any loot. Their prince, Yanlong, decides to follow Liu into the ruin and rob him of any good treasure afterward under the cover of royal authority. He is so confident in his immortal forged armor and killer talismans that he barely treats Liu's group as a real threat. Deeper in the cave, Wu Bai follows the life candle straight to Gao Yan's location and stops in front of a weird metal saucer. When Liu and Taxi arrive and see the ship, Liu instantly realizes they may have just found technology worth a fortune. Wu Bai has no idea what a spaceship even is, but Liu is already thinking in terms of tech levels and profit. With no visible door anywhere on the saucer, the three of them start circling it and feeling along the metal for a way inside. After an hour of feeling around the ship's smooth hull, Liu and Wu Bai still cannot find any way inside. Liu eyes the sealed craft and bluntly considers smashing it open by force. Wu Bai checks Gao Yan's life candle, and the flame points straight at the ship, proving his disciple is still inside. When Wu Bai worries Gao Yan has been captured, Liu checks his own map and sees Gao Yan moving toward the exit instead. Liu calmly tells Wu Bai to wait because Gao Yan should come out any minute now. Footsteps echo from the tunnel, and Yanlong's group finally catches up to Liu in the cave. Wu Bai cannot read the newcomer's strength and instinctively hides behind Liu and Taxi. Taxi is not impressed at all, because a 9th-rank Thunder Unicorn has no reason to fear a handful of soul transformation cultivators. The second prince sizes up Liu's side, first dismissing Wu Bai's weak Dao avatar, and then studying Taxi much more carefully. Once he recognizes Taxi as a 9th-rank Thunder Unicorn, the prince abruptly tells his men not to do anything reckless. That retreat only makes Liu and Taxi look even more dismissive, and the prince quietly takes the insult personally. Trying to reassert control, Yanlong introduces himself as the second prince and claims the imperial court is taking over the ruin. Wu Bai turns white at the mention of the imperial court and grabs Taxi's mane like a lifeline. Liu and Taxi ignore the prince completely and keep waiting for Gao Yan instead, which only humiliates him more. Behind his back, Yanlong secretly readies immortal killing talismans and repeats his warning with a much sharper edge. When Yanlong boasts that this is not his first time dealing with a lost civilization, Liu finally turns around and pays attention. The prince calls the ship a building, and Liu bursts into loud mocking laughter right in his face. With patience gone, Liu walks straight up to Yanlong and tells him to drop the fake courtesy and say what he really means. Yanlong steps up to meet him and finally says it plainly, "Scram or die." Liu answers with a cold grin, pats the prince's head, and whispers that Yanlong is already dead. Yanlong snaps and slaps 2 immortal killing talismans onto Liu's cheeks, convinced he just doomed him. Instead of panicking, Liu calmly counts the seconds and watches the talismans crawl through his body like parasites. Liu's strange blood devours the invading talismans, and the attack turns into a huge lifespan gain instead of a wound. Liu keeps counting with a mocking little smile and asks Yanlong if he has any more of those juicy talismans. Refusing to believe it failed, Yanlong orders his 9 men to ignore Liu and kill Taxi for his monster core. As the attackers lunge for Taxi, Yanlong's hair is already turning white and his body starts shriveling into old age behind them. Leo sighs, threads chi into his pistol rounds, and fires 9 shots in a blur as the attackers rush past him. The chi-loaded bullets turn into wood-charged seeds inside their skulls and blow all 9 attackers apart at once. Leo casually tells Taxi to finish them off, not realizing he already killed them all in a far stranger way than intended. Black sprouts wriggle out of the ruined necks, and Taxi awkwardly points out that Leo already smashed them to death. When Leo finally looks back, he finds the headless corpses already overgrown and realizes his own bullets caused the mess. Yanlong himself is now just a standing mummy, his armor and clothes slipping off a body that has completely dried out. Leo pokes the prince's head, and the whole corpse collapses into dust on the spot. Leo stares at the dust in pure annoyance, upset that he just lost what he hoped would become another source of yin fluid. He hurriedly tries mutating the other corpses too, but the wood-infused bullets have already drained them dry first. The ruined bodies finish collapsing into black soil, and tiny dragon fruit plants spring up where the attackers died. Leo smacks his forehead and blames himself for bringing gun habits into a fight where he wanted intact bodies. With the fight over, Leo methodically loots the cave, packing up the corpse plants, gear, weapons, rings, and even the remains for Cat. Wu Bai helps gather the fallen gear and freezes when he recognizes one talisman as a priceless immortal killing talisman from the Situ clan. Leo answers by dusting off another priceless talisman and chewing it like a snack right in front of Wu Bai. The talisman turns into more lifespan for Leo, while Wu Bai can only watch a city's worth of treasure vanish into that ridiculous stomach. Wu Bai desperately tries to stop him, warning that these talismans are strategic treasures that can scare off even quasi-immortals. Leo ignores the lecture, wets another talisman, rolls it into an easier mouthful, and swallows that one too. By now Wu Bai's soul is visibly leaving his body as he questions what cultivation and life even mean anymore. At last the sealed section of the spaceship opens, and Gao Yen walks out carrying the lightsaber staff he found inside. Wu Bai storms over and smacks Gao Yen for scaring everyone half to death. The scolding turns into a ridiculous chase around the ship as Gao Yen runs for his life, and Wu Bai keeps bonking him anyway, while Leo and Taxi just watch it happen. While Master and Disciple make fools of themselves, Leo quietly heads for the now open entrance, and decides to explore the ship. As Leo and Taxi enter the ship, Gao Yan's lightning spirit avatar Thora breaks away from her master and follows them, worried they might get trapped inside. Inside the first chamber, Leo tells Taxi to stay calm because this sealed room is just a normal airlock procedure. Thora is startled that Leo understands the chamber at all, because she thought only lightning spirits connected to this place would know its functions. Since Leo cannot hear her, Thora writes in the dust to ask who he is, and Leo casually answers that he is the last Floridian. Thora writes another question about how he knows the room works, and Leo shrugs it off as basic sci-fi knowledge from movies. When the inner door opens, Leo leads the way deeper into the ship and the spirit follows with growing curiosity.